Chapter 2015. A phone, come over here. What's going on? Tell us. Second Master Chai came back to his senses and suppressed the shock in his heart as he shouted at Chai Feng, who was standing there in a daze. At this moment, even Fan Ishio and the others were looking at this ordinary-looking young man. He was actually the one who had turned the situation around and saved everyone's lives? Ah Feng, you scared me to death. I thought you were really scared out of your wits. I didn't expect that this was just your plan. How did you come up with this idea? How did you get your hands on such a powerful medicine? Those people were all cultivators of the fairy realm, but none of them were able to resist at all. Brother Ah Feng, you're too amazing. Brother Ah Feng, we're lucky to have you. Otherwise, we would have been in deep trouble. Surprised and excited voices rang out and finally pulled Chai Feng back to his senses. He glanced at Fengjio, then retracted his gaze and came to his second uncle's side. Second uncle, I didn't come up with this idea, and the medicine wasn't mine. The one who saved everyone wasn't me, but Xiao Jio. Chai Feng pointed at the young man who was wiping his dagger. It was Xiao Jio who came up with this idea. It was Xiao Jio who gave me that bag of medicine. If it wasn't for him, I don't think we would have survived. It was Xiao Jio. Everyone looked at the calm and honest young man in shock. This young man was so ordinary looking. So how could, seeing that everyone was looking at him, Fengjio, who was wiping his dagger, flashed a simple and honest smile at the crowd. He then lowered his head and continued wiping his dagger. Yes, it was Xiao Jio. He gave us the medicine, and he came up with the idea, Chai Feng emphasized again. Chai Feng emphasized again. He looked at his second uncle and said, Little Nine said that he will help everyone get through this crisis, but the things on those mercenaries will belong to him. Hearing this, everyone was stunned again, and their gazes fell on the young man in green. All the things would belong to him? Then they wouldn't have anything? However, thinking deeper, if it wasn't for his idea and the medicine he took out, they might have lost their lives by now, let alone their belongings. Thinking about it carefully, it wasn't too much for him to make such a request. At least, he only asked for the belongings of the Scorpion mercenaries, not their belongings. Their lives had been saved by him. Even if they knew that the Scorpion mercenaries had a lot of belongings, they wouldn't be greedy. After all, he was so young but so cunning and had such a powerful medicine. Second Master Chai nodded. I think so too. As he said that, he ordered a few people to collect the space rings and Shinquin pouches from the Scorpion mercenaries. They were stacked into 2 small piles, along with the weapons in their hands. Xiao Jio, thank you for saving us with your plan. You deserve all of this, Second Master Chai said as he gestured for him to collect all the belongings. Chapter 2016. She took the spatial rings and universal bags, as well as the jade ornaments on the waists of the Scorpion mercenaries. As for the weapons, she said to the family's master, I have no use for these weapons, so you can keep them for yourselves. Perhaps they will come in handy in the future. How can you do that? These are all your. Before the Second Master Chai could finish his words, he was interrupted by Fengjio. I have no use for them, as I can't use so many of them. She smiled and looked at Chai Feng. She then took out a spatial ring from her space and handed it to him. Brother Chai, this is for you. No, how can I take them? It's already not easy for us to survive, so you should keep them. I can't take them. Chai Feng waved his hand and stepped back. He didn't want to take them. Even though Fengjio repeatedly asked him to take them, he still insisted on not taking them. In the end, Fengjio had no choice but to take them. Fine. If you don't want them, I will keep them for myself. When we return to the city, I will sell them for money. She smiled as she spoke. The Second Master, Chai, ordered everyone to take one of the weapons and keep it with them. As he looked at the corpses and the blood on the ground, he said, We can't stay here for long. We must leave immediately and find a clean place to rest. Okay. Thus, everyone quickly left. After they left the bloody area, they found a place without the smell of blood and sat down to rest. Xiao Jio, do you still have that medicine? The Second Master Chai asked. He wondered what kind of medicine it was. If it could poison even a fairy realm expert, then it couldn't have been refined by an ordinary person. "No," she said as she spread out her hands. "Then, where did you get that medicine?" The second master, Chai, asked again. He thought that if he knew where she had bought it, he could go there and buy some to protect himself. 100 Rivers City's Heavenly Elixir Building, Fengjiu said with a smile. 100 Rivers City's Heavenly Elixir Building. Second Master, Chai looked at him in surprise. He then looked at the other members of the Chai family and said to Fengjiu, "We have never heard of the Heavenly Elixir Building." Fan Ishio and the others who were sitting at the side did not say anything. They were deep in thought. Among them, Fan Ishio was the strangest. He looked at Fengjiu and asked, "Is it 100 Rivers City?" "I didn't say that there was a Heavenly Dan building in the 100 Rivers City." A female disciple replied, "Eldest senior brother's home is in 100 River City." Fengjiu's eyes flashed. Fan Ishio's home was in 100 River City? There didn't seem to be many people with the surname Fan in 100 River City. A figure flashed through his mind, but it was gone in a flash. This Heavenly Elixir Building is newly opened. It specializes in selling elixirs, medicines, medicinal powders, and other commonly used things. These things are just like the medicine I took out today. They are good and top grade. However, they're also very expensive. Moreover, some things can't be bought with money. "Oh, money can't buy it? Then, how can it be bought?" Someone asked as he looked at Fengjiu in surprise. "Medicinal ingredients. Moreover, they have aged medicinal ingredients. They buy at least 500 years old spiritual ingredients." This news has already spread in the Heavenly Elixir Building. Many people have asked for them because of their reputation. I only managed to get this medicine by chance. Chapter 2017. After a moment of silence, Chai Feng asked the question that he wanted to ask the most along the way. "Second uncle, are we going to enter the volcano forest again?" Ever since he encountered the Scorpion mercenaries and almost lost his life, he had been thinking about this problem along the way. They had gone to other places to gain experience before, but this time there were also some disciples who didn't have much experience following them. Among them, there were a few women from the clan. If Little Nine hadn't thought of a way to reverse the situation and save everyone's lives, he was afraid that none of them would have survived. Moreover, he felt that compared to the people inside, their strength was still too weak. Even if the person leading them was the most talented second master of the Chai family, who was a cultivator at the beginner immortal realm, it was impossible for him to protect so many of them. In his heart, he vaguely hoped that he could return home or find a new place to train. It did not have to be the Fire Mountain Forest. When Second Master Chai heard Chai Feng's words, he was stunned and looked at him with a slightly twisted gaze. "We're already here. Are we still going back?" Cultivation is against the heavens, so there will naturally be many obstacles on our way of cultivation. Some of them may even lead to death. Can we retreat just because there are dangers ahead? If we retreat, I'm afraid we won't be able to improve our strength for the rest of our lives. But we've only just reached the outskirts of the inner area. I'm worried that if we continue to walk in, all of us might really die here. Upon hearing this, Second Master Chai immediately reprimanded him. "Nonsense. The Scorpion mercenaries are gone now, so there won't be many people left in the forest. If you're afraid of danger, you could just raise your guard. What's there to worry about?" Chai Feng lowered his head and did not say anything else. He knew that they would not listen to his suggestion even if he made it. Everyone rested in the forest until the sky gradually darkened. Today's battle had exhausted them. Now that they were relaxed, they felt weak all over. Compared to the people sitting around the fire under the tree, Fengjiu leaned against the tree and slept. She took advantage of the night's rest to explore the things in the interspatial rings and Chinquan bags with her divine sense. She found one of the fire's park stones. However, there were people guarding the surrounding trees, so she could not enter the space. She could only use her divine sense to scan the area and remember the characteristics of the fire's park stones. The next morning, after a good night's rest, everyone woke up in high spirits. They stretched their bodies one by one and got ready to continue walking into the depths of the forest after organizing themselves. The rest of the journey was rather peaceful. Occasionally, small beasts would appear, but but they would be repelled by them. The peaceful training made them gradually forget about the dangers from before. Until one morning, when they were walking towards the depths of the forest, they heard voices coming from the forest ahead. "I'll go and take a look first," Fan Ishio said. He gave some instructions to the people behind him and went ahead to explore the path. It was only because the Chai family's people had been scouting the way that they had followed. Now that they had heard the sound, they naturally had to check it out. Chapter 2018. There were more than 20 men lying on the ground in front of him. They were all injured and the smell of blood filled the air. However, although they were injured, they were not fatal. What made him astonished was that the people on the ground were all dealt with by a man in his 20s or 30s. On the side, a gray-robed old man was sitting on top of two men who were stacked together. He seemed to be impatient as he urged, but it took so long to deal with more than 20 people. "Why don't you just kill them all with a single slash? Clean and tidy." "Marshal Granduncle," Fan Ishio shouted excitedly after he recovered from his shock. Hun Yuan, who was sitting with his legs crossed, was shocked by this Marshal Granduncle. He couldn't help but jump up and look at Fan Ishio, who was walking over quickly. He looked at him from head to toe and said, "Who are you?" "What Marshal Granduncle? Don't call me that." Marshal Granduncle, disciple Fan Ishio, is a disciple of the Nebula Immortal sect. I was lucky enough to see Marshal Granduncle from afar in the sect, so I can recognize you. Fan Ishio was excited. He didn't meet anyone from the Nebula Immortal sect along the way, but he didn't expect to meet the elusive Marshal Granduncle Han Yuan here. "Marshal Granduncle, this is Disciple's identity token." Fan Ishio quickly took out his identity token and handed it over. With one hand tugging on his beard, Han Yuanzi slightly raised his eyelids and glanced at him. Seeing that he was wearing the robes of the Nebula Immortal sect, and that outer robe was a defensive mystic artifact, Han Yuanzi took his identity jade tablet and scanned it with his divine sense. Only then did he ask, "So you're a disciple of the Jade Forest Mountain?" "Yes, disciple is from the Jade Forest Mountain," Fan Ishio quickly said. "Since you're a disciple of the Jade Forest Mountain, why are you here?" Han Yuan glanced at him and snorted. "You dare to enter the Fire Mountain Forest with such strength? Do you want to die?" Fan Ishio lowered his head and said respectfully, "Disciple and my juniors are under Master's orders to enter the Fire Mountain Forest to find Fire's Park stones." Hearing this, Han Yuan frowned. "Your master asked you to enter the Fire Mountain Forest to find Fire's Park stones? Other than you, how many disciples of the Nebula Immortal sect are there? Why are you alone?" "Marshal Granduncle, other than disciple, there are 2 juniors and 3 juniors. Master knows that our strength is limited, so before we go, he gave us a defensive artifact, which is the fire armor. The other juniors are resting not far behind." Fan Ishio pointed. Hearing this, Han Yuanzi's divine sense swept over and saw a large group of people resting in the forest 100 meters away. Among them, there were indeed a few young disciples wearing the clothes of a Nebula Immortal sect. He retracted his gaze and asked, "Who are those people?" Chapter 2019. If it was an enemy, Fan Ishio should have given her a hint. However, there was no movement in front of them. Did that mean they knew each other? She could use her divine consciousness to investigate, but since she could sense the strength of the divine consciousness, she naturally would not use her divine consciousness to investigate. Otherwise, it would easily arouse the other party's suspicion and attention. As for who it was, she believed she would find out soon. Han Yuan nodded and said, "You guys are lucky. We haven't met the Scorpion mercenary group for quite some time, but you guys got surrounded as soon as you entered the inner area." Fan Ishio nodded and said, "You guys are lucky. We haven't met the Scorpion mercenary group for quite some time, but you guys got surrounded as soon as you entered the inner area." TSK, TSK. Speaking of which, your luck is really heaven-defying. Not a single one of you died after encountering the Scorpion mercenaries. You're only injured, yet you're still alive and well. It seems that this person really has some luck. As he spoke, he looked at Zhuo Junyue and said, "Look at his luck. and then look at yours. TSK, TSK. Junue glanced at the old man expressionlessly and looked away indifferently, too lazy to talk to him. Speaking of which, it's fortunate that Xiao Jio is here. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for us to avoid this disaster. As Fan Ishio spoke, he looked at the old man in front of him and said, "Marshal Granduncle, are you also looking for the Fires Park stone? Would it be possible for you to travel with us?" Speaking of this, he lowered his head in shame. After entering here, this disciple realized that it was difficult for me to even protect myself with my own strength. Now that I have a few junior brothers and sisters with me, I can't return with the Fires Park stone and report back. If I enter again, I'm worried that I'll lose my life here, so. Hun Yuan stroked his beard but did not agree. Instead, he looked at the man standing quietly beside him and asked, "Junue, what do you think?" "As you wish." His words were concise and did not say much. Hun Yuanzi thought for a moment before nodding. "That's fine. Anyway, there are only two of us. Especially since this guy is a blockhead who doesn't speak much. It's quite boring to be with him." Hearing this, Fan Ishio joyfully expressed his thanks. "Many thanks to Grand Marshal Uncle. Many thanks to this." He suddenly remembered that Grand Marshal Uncle didn't mention who this young master was. His surname is Joie. His name is Joie Junue. Primordial Chaos said without further introduction, "Thank you, young Master Joie." He hurriedly bowed and looked at the people on the ground. Don't worry about the people on the ground. Even if they don't die, they won't amount to anything. Let's go. Hun Yuan waved his hand and let him lead the way. At this moment, the people from Chai family and Nebula sect saw that Fan Ishio hadn't returned after such a long time. They couldn't help but worry. "Why haven't you come back yet? Could something have happened to him? Why don't I go take a look?" "There's no need. Look, he's back." "But who are those two?" One of them said as he looked at the old man and the man who followed behind. Fengjiu, who was drinking water under the tree, couldn't help but choke when he saw the old man and the young man walking over. Cough, cough. She patted her chest and quickly went behind a tree. After catching her breath, she picked up the water bag and put it into the space. Then, she quietly poked her head out from behind the tree to look at the two people. Chapter 2020. She touched her face. Although it was a disguise the last time she saw the old man, she seemed to be wearing this face. Moreover, she was certain that even if she smeared something on her face to prevent him from seeing her face, the old man would still recognize her. After all, her profound spirit body couldn't escape his eyes. Escape? Where could she escape to? It wasn't easy for her to sneak into this group and make a name for herself. She couldn't bear to leave now. However, if she didn't escape, the old man wouldn't let her go so easily. Her mind raced for a moment. At this moment, she faintly heard a voice in front of her. "Second Master Chai, this is our Marshal Granduncle, Hun Yuan Zi, and this is young Master Zhua." Fan Ishio introduced them. When the Chai clan members heard that it was Hun Yuan Zi from the Nebula Immortal sect, their eyes lit up with excitement. "It's Hun Yuan Zi, Immortal Monarch. My apologies for not recognizing you. I am..." Fengjiu listened to the second master of the Chai family's introduction excitedly. He asked the younger generation of the Chai family to come forward to greet him and say a lot of words of admiration. In the end, she was interrupted by the old man. All right. I heard that there's a young man called Xiao Jiu here. Who is he?" Hun Yuanzi glanced around and didn't see any particularly outstanding young man. "Oh, it's Xiao Jiu. Xiao Jiu was resting under this tree just now." Second Master Chai smiled and pointed at the tree not far behind him. However, the young man's figure was nowhere to be seen. He couldn't help but be startled. He walked forward to take a look and couldn't help laughing. He said to Hun Yuanzi, "Xiao Jiu must be tired," and fell asleep leaning against a tree. "Oh, is that so?" Hun Yuanzi poked his head forward and glanced at the corner of a cyan robe. He became even more curious. So this was the young man who saved everyone here? He walked forward step by step. When he arrived behind the tree to take a look, his eyes couldn't help but widen. His hands trembled as he pointed at the sleeping green-clothed youth. You. It's you little bastard." The expressionless Juanyue's eyes flashed when he saw this. He glanced at Master Hun Yuan and walked up to the tree. He couldn't help but be startled. This young man was handsome and beautiful. He wasn't very dazzling, but his facial features were well coordinated. Moreover, the more he looked at him, the more familiar he felt. When he thought about how Hun Yuanzi had called this young man a little bastard, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became strange. Fan Ishio and company also came over. Second Master Chai looked at primordial chaos and asked in puzzlement, "Immortal Lord, do you know Xiaojio?" After saying this, he felt that it was inappropriate to ask this question. This Xiaojio was originally with Fan Ishio and the others. Since they were all from a Nebula Immortal sect, they should know each other. However, after thinking about it, he felt that something was amiss. This primordial chaos had always been elusive and had an extraordinary status in the Nebula Immortal sect. How could he know a small disciple? However, from the looks of it, it seemed like he had really interacted with Xiaojio before. Interacted? When he thought of this, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile. One was the sect's Mount Tai, and the other was a small disciple of the sect. How could these two have interacted? Does Martial Granduncle know Xiaojio? Chapter 2021. This little bastard. I can recognize him even if he turns into ashes. The old man said angrily. He stepped forward and shouted, "Little bastard, stop sleeping. I know you're pretending. Get up now." Fengjiu rubbed her eyes and opened them blankly. When she saw the crowd surrounding her, she was shocked. She patted her chest and said, "Why are you all surrounding me? I just took a short nap. Did something happen? Don't pretend, kid. How dare you say you don't recognize this old man?" Hun Yuanzi suddenly leaned his face in front of Fengjiu and glared at her. Fengjiu blinked and shook her head. "Old man, I don't know you." Then she asked carefully, "Have we met before?" Originally, when Hun Yuan saw him shake his head, he thought that this kid was quite sensible and didn't dare to pretend not to know him. However, when he heard what he said, he was so angry that he snorted heavily. He glared at him and pointed at him. You little bastard. You heartless little bastard. How dare you say you don't recognize me? You say that again. I dare you to say it again." Looking at the old man who wanted to sit on the ground and act shamelessly, Fengjiu secretly curled her lips and said good-naturedly, "I really don't know you. I've never seen you before." Then she thought for a moment and said, "Could it be that you've seen me and forgotten me? I don't think so. I don't have any impression of you. You're still talking. You're still talking. You. I knew it. I knew you wouldn't admit it so easily, you little bastard." The more he spoke, the more aggrieved he felt. He crossed his arms and sat down in front of Fengjiu like an old urchin. He stared at Fengjiu with reddened eyes. Seeing the dignified grandmaster of a generation, Taishan of the Nebula Immortal sect, childishly sitting on the ground in front of the youth with his arms crossed in front of his chest, staring at him with grievance and anger, everyone was at a loss. What the hell is going on here? Second Master Chai pulled Fan Ishio aside and asked, "Is this really Senior Hun Yuan? Are you sure?" Fan Ishio was also a bit embarrassed. He said, "It can't be wrong. Martial Granduncle has always been carefree. His character is... For a moment, Fan Ishio couldn't find any other words to say. He only said, "It's like this. Second Master Chai, please don't take offense." No. But what's going on between him and Xiaojio? Why is it that one person says he knows him, while the other says he doesn't? Fan Ishio shook his head and sighed. "I don't know either." Even the second master of the Chai family did not know what was going on between Xiaojio and Grand Martial Uncle. How would he know if the two of them had met before? Fengjiu, who was leaning against the tree, saw the old man glaring at her and sitting in front of her. She couldn't help but ask embarrassedly, "Old man, what are you doing?" "You little bastard, don't you know what I'm trying to do?" Hun Yuan snorted. He was going to waste his time with him. This time, he couldn't let him escape. Fengjiu rubbed her head and smiled foolishly. "I really don't know." She didn't believe that he could force her to admit it. Chapter 2022. Zhuo Junwei glanced at Hun Yuanzi, then at the young man. Didn't he say he doesn't know you? You brat. Asked if you were that little bastard. Hun Yuanzi glared at him. Zhuo Junwei didn't say anything else. He just pursed his lips and looked away. Fan Ishio stepped forward at second Master Chai's signal. Martial Granduncle, no matter what, we're all here. We still have a long way to go. What he meant was that even if they did know each other, it didn't matter if Xiao Jio didn't admit it. They could still get to know each other after a long time. Oomph. Hun Yuanzi snorted and didn't say anything else. He just stared at Feng Jiu, who was smiling. Brat, didn't you say you don't know me? Fine, I'll say it again. I'm Hun Yuanzi from the Nebula Immortal Sect. Oh, Senior Hun Yuanzi. She stood up and bowed to him. She thought to herself, what Hun Yuanzi? He's just an old bastard. She smiled and was about to leave when Hun Yuanzi stared at her and asked, Brat, what are you doing? She was stunned and said blankly, I didn't do anything. I'm thinking that since we've rested here for a while, should we continue moving forward? Everyone was stunned and looked at Second Master Chai and Hun Yuanzi. Hun Yuanzi pulled at his beard and didn't say anything. Second Master Chai smiled and stepped forward. Hun Yuanzi, Immortal Lord, what do you think? Let's go. The monk can run, but the temple can't. I don't think this brat dares to run. He put one hand behind his back and stroked his beard with the other. Then he stepped forward. Second Master Chai thought to himself, this young man is from the Nebula Immortal Sect. Isn't it easy for you to find him? Even if he did run away, the sect would be able to find his family. Naturally, the monk can run, but the temple can't. On the other hand, Hun Yuanzi was thinking that since this little bastard was a member of the Chai family, then even if he ran away again, he would still be able to find the Chai family. He didn't believe that this little bastard would dare to run away under his nose this time. Both of them thought that the young man was one of the other party's men, but they didn't know that he had snuck in to give them the wrong impression. The group of people walked forward. Second Master Chai, Hun Yuanzi, and Zhuo Junyue walked in the front. Feng Jiu walked in the middle with Chai Feng. Xiao Jiu, why did the Hun Yuan Immortal Monarch say that he knew you? Have you forgotten where you saw me before? Chai Feng couldn't help but be curious and asked in a low voice. This was because he saw Hun Yuan turning his head to stare at Xiao Jiu from time to time. The look in his eyes didn't seem like he didn't know Xiao Jiu at all. Feng Jiu sighed softly and said, I don't know. Maybe we've met before, but I forgot. She spread out her hands helplessly. It's okay if you forgot. Don't worry too much. I don't think he has any ill intentions towards you. Chai Feng comforted her. Yes, I know. Of course. She knew that the old man didn't have any ill intentions towards her. He only wanted her to be his disciple. But she refused and even swindled him out of a treasure like the Aurora teleportation scroll. However, it wasn't exactly swindling. It was something she deserved after she cured Zhuo Junyue's poison. Chapter 2023. He saw that the young man was talking to the person beside him, smiling from time to time. As if sensing his gaze, the young man looked at him with a smile in his eyes. When he met the young man's gaze, his heart skipped a beat. He slowed down his pace and let the person beside him go first. He walked in the middle and came to the young man's side. Seeing that this man had something to say to little Nine, Chai Feng, who was at the side, consciously moved back a little, giving them some space. What's the matter? Feng Jiu looked at the man walking beside him and asked, I owe you a word of thanks. Zhuo Junyue tilted his head slightly to look at the young man beside him. He saw that the young man only reached his neck and had to lower his head to look at him. Thank you for saving me last time. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled and narrowed his eyes. I don't even remember. You don't remember, but I do. He said, then added, My name is Zhuo Junyue. She raised her eyebrows. Okay, got it. Just as they were talking, the group in front of them suddenly stopped. Everyone looked at Hun Yuanzi in confusion. Immortal Monarch, what's wrong? Second Master Chai asked while looking around vigilantly. There was a cry of alarm. At the same time, Hun Yuanzi released his divine sense to check ahead. Feng Jiu and Zhuo Junyue also released their divine sense to check their surroundings. Almost at the same time, the three of them retracted their divine sense. Run. This way. Hun Yuanzi shouted and pointed to the left. Run. If you're too slow, you'll lose your life. Damn it. Let's go. Who told you to run around in here? Are you tired of living? As he scolded, he looked behind him. His gaze swept past everyone and landed on Fengjiu and Zhuo Junyue. He shouted at Zhuo Junyue. Junyue, watch that bastard carefully. Don't let him die. With that, he quickly ordered everyone to escape. Marshal Granduncle, what's going on? Fan Ishio asked anxiously as he followed him. At this moment, the Chai family disciple who had cried out earlier screamed again. Ah, save me. When everyone turned back, they saw a dense swarm of red carnivorous ants crawling out from behind them. The Chai family disciple who had cried out for help was surrounded by the ants in the blink of an eye. His entire body was covered with blood-red ants, and in an instant as to death, he was to be devoured to death, leaving his clothes to fall to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and their faces turned pale. Man-eating ants. At this moment, everyone finally understood why Master Hun Yuan was scolding someone. It was because a disciple had poked into the man-eating ant's nest. Run. Chai Feng went forward to help her up. He looked back and saw Zhuo Junyue and Xiao Jiu at the back. He could not help but shout, Xiao Jiu, run! Run! Zhuo Junyue looked at the calm and fearless young man beside him and asked, Aren't you afraid? Chapter 2024. With a wave of the youth's hand, a flame flew out. With a whoosh, the flame landed in front of the carnivorous ants. The carnivorous ants that were crawling forward couldn't dodge in time, and with a hiss, a large area was burned. A foul smell accompanied by the smell of burnt flesh spread out and instantly filled the air. Zhuo Junyu saw the boy's footsteps move slightly, and his entire body move several meters in an instant. Zhuo Junyu could not help but be slightly surprised. He glanced at the boy and waved his sword to attack the man-eating ants behind him. Two streaks of sword aura followed him forward and came to the boy's side. Screams and screams could be heard from the front. It turned out that other than the carnivorous ants behind them, the carnivorous ants on the left and right had surrounded them. Some of the slower ones were devoured by the carnivorous ants and turned into white bones in an instant. Some were bitten by the ants and screamed as they covered their wounds and ran. Run! Run! Hun Yuanzi could not help but scold them when he saw them running in panic. Don't run to the left and right. Run forward. Forward. He burned a large number of carnivorous ants while protecting them. However, there were too many of them, and they cannot be burned to death. Moreover, they cannot fight. The group of people ran forward madly. Behind them, wherever the man-eating ants passed, the trees were hollowed out, the weeds were pushed down, and a densely packed army of man-eating ants chased them from behind, not letting them go. There's a stream in front. Cross the stream. Quick! Second Master Chai shouted as he led the group across the stream that was a few meters wide. As the group fled across the stream, the carnivorous ants that were chasing them finally circled around the stream and left. Seeing this, the group heaved a sigh of relief and sat down while panting. That was close. Why were there carnivorous ants there? A member of the Chai family asked with a pale face. He could not help but shudder when he thought of the man who had turned into white bones in an instant. There were so many carnivorous ants that they could not fight even if they wanted to. There were too many of them, and they were small targets. They could only run for their lives if they encountered them. Second Master Chai panted lightly. He glanced at his family members and ordered the people beside him. Check how many of them died. How many were injured? Yes. The middle-aged man beside him responded and checked how many of the Chai family's disciples were missing and how many of them had been bitten. Second uncle, what happens if you're bitten by a man-eating ant? A young man asked in a trembling voice. He held his arm with one hand, and his face was still pale. Second Master Chai took a deep breath and looked at Hun Yuanzi with a slight frown. Immortal Monarch, we have never encountered man-eating ants. May I ask what will happen if we are bitten by them? Nothing, Hun Yuanzi said as he looked around for Shui, Junyue, and Fengjiu. However, he could not find them and could not help but frown. Second Master Chai's heart sank when he heard this. What would happen if nothing happened? When they came here, they had heard that the man-eating ants were one of the 5 poisonous creatures in the volcanic forest. However, they did not know what would happen to the people who were bitten. Fan Isho also held his arm. He walked up and asked with a serious expression, Marshal Granduncle, disciple was also bitten. However, other than the pain, there doesn't seem to be anything else. I should be fine, right? Chapter 2025. The mere thought of this sent chills down his spine. Was the Fires Park stone more important than them in his master's eyes? Was he not afraid that they would not be able to return? He did not let his father know that he had come here. If he really died here, his parents would not be able to accept it. Among the 6 of them, only junior sister had mentioned the volcano forest to her father. The others did not know about it all. Hun Yuan, who was looking for Shui, Junyue, and Fengjiu, frowned and glanced at him. His gaze landed on Hun Yuan's arm, and he scolded. Since you don't know anything, how dare you enter the volcano forest? Your master sent you to your deaths, and you really came. You are all brainless. Fan Ishio and the rest of the Chai all lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak after being scolded by Hun Yuan. They truly didn't think things through, especially the second master. He couldn't help but feel regret. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have brought them here to train. If all of them were to die here, he wouldn't be able to escape the blame even if he returned alive. In the end, he was overconfident. He thought that he could bring his family members into the volcano forest to train because he was an immortal expert. He did not expect to encounter danger again and again. At this moment, the Chai family's doctor shook his head after examining the injured members of the Chai family. He said to Second Master Chai, Second Master Chai, they look fine now. It's just some superficial wounds. I have already asked them to treat the wounds and apply some medicine. I just don't know. He just did not know if there would be any other symptoms later. Especially when he saw that Hun Yuan didn't say much, he didn't have much confidence. However, he couldn't find anything at the moment. Immortal Monarch, please tell us what will happen if we are bitten by the man-eating ants. We can prepare in advance. Second Master Chai had a bad feeling. If the bites were just superficial wounds, the Hun Yuan Immortal Monarch would not look so bad. Uncle Master, Fan Isho also called out, looking at him uneasily. The surrounding people, whether they were bitten by the ants or not, all looked at Hun Yuanzi. Hun Yuan snorted when he saw everyone looking at him. He said angrily, Why are you looking at me? I don't know any medicine. Why do you think the man-eating ants are listed as one of the 5 volcanic poisons? Of course, it's because of their poison, but I did not find any traces of poison on their bodies. The doctor from the Chai family said doubtfully. He did not find any traces of poison. How could it be because of the ants' poison? Just because you did not find any traces doesn't mean there's no poison. Ordinary poison can be cured with antidotes. But this is the poison of the man-eating ants' poison. Hun Yuan to Hun Yuan. Alluring Ghost Doctor. Chapter 2026. Many of them had been bitten by the carnivorous ants. If what he said was true, then wouldn't they be dead for sure? What can I do? I don't know any medicine. Hun Yuanzi said angrily. His eyes were still looking around. He was puzzled. Where were the 2 boys? Marshal Granduncle. Can't we cure it even if we have the antidote? I just took the antidote. It's a level 4 pill. Should it work? Fan Ishio asked. His face was pale and his heart was heavy. For a chance of survival, he had even taken the level 4 antidote his father gave him. He just didn't know if it would work. It's useless, it's useless. The reason why these man-eating ants are one of the 5 poisons of the volcano forest is because the man-eating ants here are used to the high temperature of the volcano. They are not ordinary man-eating ants, but the tail of each man-eating ant has fire poison. I have never heard of anyone who has been bitten surviving. Then we can't be saved? One of them muttered. Hun Yuanzi glanced at them and stroked his beard. He said slowly, It's not that there's no hope. After hearing his words, a glimmer of hope rose in the hearts of the people who were already in despair. Immortal monarch, please show us a way out. That little bastard. Let's see if that little bastard can save you. Hun Yuanzi snorted. Looking at these people, they didn't know that there was such a skilled little bastard in their clan, and they were still trying to save him. They were holding a life-saving treasure in their arms, but didn't know how to use it. These people had lived in vain. Little bastard? Everyone was puzzled. After thinking for a while, they asked carefully, is it Xiao Jiao? Who else could it be? That little bastard's medical skills are brilliant. If he wants to save you, you will naturally be able to survive. He could also cure the poison from the carnivorous ants. They believed that the fire poison of the carnivorous ants would not be difficult for him. Everyone was shocked. At this time, they looked around and found that the young man in green was not here. Even a man surnamed Zhuo was not here. They couldn't help but tremble. They were focused on escaping and forgot about the young man. He couldn't have been bitten by the carnivorous ants, right? He's not here. Chai Feng also reacted. Could Xiao Jiao be in danger? Why aren't you with us? I'll go back and look for it. I'll go with you. The rest of you can rest here. Second Master Chai then turned to the crowd and said, if they come back, ask him to take a look at your wounds. If we can't find him, we will come back as soon as possible. With that, he turned to Hun Yuanzi and said, Immortal Monarch, please take care of the people here. We'll be back soon. Go. Thinking that the Chai family was that little bastard's clansman, Hun Yuanzi didn't show any displeasure. He just waved his hand and found a place to sit down. Although he did not have much hope for the kid's skills, he believed that the kid would not die with Zhuo Junyue, that blockhead, following him. He was probably just lost in the forest. Chapter 2027. Zhuo Junyue watched as the young man rummaged through the area. The ants have just returned to their nest. You might draw them out if you keep rummaging around. I won't, Feng Jiao replied without turning around. What are you looking for? Do you need my help? He asked as he followed behind the young man, keeping an eye on the surroundings. Purple woodgrass. It should be around here. Help me look for it. Its leaves are green at the top and purple at the bottom. Its stem is purple and looks like a tree branch. See if you can find it. Feng Jiao bent down to search through the bushes. Hearing his words, Zhuo Junyue also pushed aside the grass to search around. After searching for a while, Zhuo Junyue saw the purple woodgrass that Feng Jiao had mentioned earlier under a tree. He went forward and dug it out. See if this is it. Feng Jiao turned around and saw Zhuo Junyue holding a purple wood herb a few meters away. She walked forward and smiled. Not bad, this is it. Let's check again. There should be more. One is not enough. Okay. The two of them searched the area. Suddenly, they heard someone calling out to them from the forest. Xiao Jiao, young Master Zhuo, young Master Zhuo, Xiao Jiao, young Master Zhuo. The two of them who had already dug up a few purple wood grass, straightened their backs, and looked at each other. It looks like Chai Feng. Is it enough? If it's enough, let's go back. Zhuo Junyue said. Feng Jiao looked at the purple wood grass in his hand and nodded. Yes, it's enough. Let's go. Those people probably couldn't wait any longer. Xiao Jiao, young Master Zhuo, where are you? Chai Feng shouted in the forest. They had followed the path they had taken earlier, but they couldn't find the two of them. Second uncle, could they have already? Chai Feng couldn't help but think of the worst. If they were surrounded by the ants, it would be difficult for them to escape. Let's keep looking. That young Master Zhuo isn't an ordinary person. Even if Xiao Jiao isn't strong enough, young Master Zhuo can still protect him, Second Elder Chai said as he continued walking forward. Feng Jiao, who was walking over, couldn't help but twitch her mouth when she heard their conversation. Was her strength not enough? Fine. Who asked her to suppress her strength to the early stage of Jindan's stage? Indeed, she did look a little weak. It was no wonder that they felt that she couldn't do it. Xiao Jiao, young Master Zhuo. Chai Feng couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when he saw the two men walking over. Then, he quickly stepped forward. Young Master Zhuo, Xiao Jiao, I'm so glad you're okay. Second Master Chai heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the two were still alive. He hurriedly said to Feng Jiao, Xiao Jiao, many people have been bitten by the man-eating ants. The Hunyuan Immortal Monarch said that your medical skills can save everyone. Please save everyone. When Zhuo Junhua heard this, he felt a little strange. However, he couldn't put his finger on it, so he just looked at the young man beside him. Feng Jiu smiled and said, "Let's go back first." Okay. Let's go back. The Immortal Monarch said that the heat poison of the man-eating ants is very powerful. I wonder how they are now. Second Master Chai said. He was also worried about his clansmen. Immediately, he led them back. Chapter 2028. Hiss. Everyone was wailing in pain, causing the people who were taking care of them to panic. The doctor from the Chai family was busy checking on their bodies, but he was also at a loss of what to do. Immortal Monarch, what should we do? The heat poison in their bodies has begun to act up. The doctor from the Chai family came to Hunyuan Zi's side and said anxiously, "There's no use asking me. I've already said that I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to cure this thing." Hunyuan Zi was not in a good mood either, seeing those people crying out in pain, and among them were disciples from the Nebula Immortal sect. How could he feel good? But it was useless to ask him. He really had no other choice. 3 female disciples from the Nebula Immortal sect surrounded Fan Ishio, their faces full of worry. "Eldest senior brother, how are you? Can you hold on?" "I'm fine." Fan Ishio panted lightly as the heat poison in his body flared up. His entire body was scalding hot to the point where it was about to emit smoke. However, even though he was drenched in cold sweat and his face was flushed red, he had at least consumed a rank 4 detoxification pill earlier, which had somewhat alleviated the heat poison. Compared to the others who had already begun to vomit, his consciousness was still relatively clear. Eldest senior brother. The 3 girls looked at him with tears in their eyes, worried that he would die like this. Along the way, he had been taking care of them. If it was not for saving them, he would not have been bitten by the man-eating ants. The 2 men sitting next to him had dark expressions. Seeing their senior brother in such a state, they felt as if there was a fire burning in their hearts. One of them said in a deep voice, "When we return, I will definitely choose a new master. I don't want to stay at Jade Forest Mountain any longer. After leaving here, I will not return to Jade Forest Mountain. I will go home directly and have my father write a letter to the Immortal Sect." The man next to him said in a deep voice, "Entering here was the worst decision ever." Hearing their words, the 3 women wiped away their tears as well and said, "We don't want to return to Jade Forest Mountain either. Master doesn't even care about our lives. If not for eldest senior martial brother protecting us throughout the journey, we would have long lost our lives." Fan Ishio moved his lips, wanting to say something, but when the words reached his mouth, he could not say anything. The danger of this trip was far beyond their expectations. If they still couldn't see their master's attitude towards them at this moment, then they would have lived in vain. Hunyuan, who was sitting in front of them, glanced at them when he heard their words. He unscrewed the wine pot at his waist and took a sip. He snorted and said, "You don't need such a master. If you follow him, you'll die a mysterious death sooner or later." He did not care about the actions of the Jade Forest Mountain Lord either. He allowed these few juniors to enter and did not even send a person with a stronger strength to lead them. If they had not met him, they would have long died countless of times. "Oh no, someone's dead." The doctor from the Chai family cried out in alarm. He saw a member of the Chai family vomit. His body twitched for a while before he stopped moving. He went forward to check on him and found that he was no longer breathing. He was clearly dead. Hunyuan frowned and went forward to take a look. Then he shook his head. "There's nothing I can do even if he dies." "We're back," Chai Feng shouted from the other side of the stream. Raising his chi, he swept across the stream together with Fengjiu and the others and landed on the grassland. Chapter 2029. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a green figure walk past him and into the middle of the crowd. Second Master Chai and the others followed. Even Hunyuan Master tugged at his beard and went forward to take a look. Fengjiu walked forward and knelt down beside the dead man. He stretched out 2 fingers to feel the artery in the man's neck and bent down to listen to his heartbeat. Then, he pressed his hands on the man's chest and gave him first aid. After 10 minutes, he took out a silver needle to open up the man's blocked airway. The man vomited violently and regained his breath. He's awake? He's not awake, he's alive. Heavens! Shout, Gio's medical skills are that good. He can even revive a person who's already dead. Instantly, everyone's shocked and excited eyes fell on Feng Gio, especially those who had been bitten by the man-eating ants. They surrounded him. Xiao Gio, you have to save me. I was bitten by the man-eating ants. My body is burning, and I feel like I'm dying. Xiao Gio, me too. Me too. One by one, they squeezed forward. Feng Gio could not help but frown. He stepped back and said, "Don't push. Quiet down." Hearing his words, everyone quieted down. Hope reignited in their eyes. Hunyuan Master Chai was right. Xiao Jio's medical skills were really good. The fire poison is not without an antidote. She looked at them and said, "I went to pick some herbs earlier. When I refine the herbs, you will have the antidote. The calmer your mind is, the slower the fire poison will flare up. You should sit quietly for a while." After she finished speaking, she said to the Chai family's doctor, "Uncle Chai, come and help me." Okay. The doctor hurriedly responded and followed her to the stream. Only then did Primordial Chaos sit down. He stroked his beard and said, "I told you, this little bastard must have a way." With that, he waved at Zhuo Junue. "Come here. I have something to ask you." Zhuo Junue looked at the young man who was sitting by the stream and taking out many things from his space. His eyes flashed. Although Feng Gio had cured him last time, he had been in a coma. Today, he saw him save a dead man with his own eyes. It seemed that his medical skills were really good. He had reached the miraculous stage of bringing the dead back to life. Hearing the old man calling him, Zhuo Junue walked over to him and sat down beside him. "What's the matter?" he asked while keeping an eye on Feng Ix's movements. Hunyuanzi looked at him and asked, "What did you do in the end?" When Zhuo Junue heard this, he frowned slightly. "What do you mean? What did they do after that?" "You know what I mean," Primordial Chaos said. "Did you catch up at the back? You said you didn't know him. It seems that little bastard is picky." The more he spoke, the angrier he became. The person he wanted to take as his disciple did not care about him. Instead, he got along well with this blockhead. He really had no taste. Chapter 2030. If he had not gone back to pick herbs, these people would not have been saved. Everyone waited anxiously. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they saw them come back, shaking the water bags in their hands. Come, let's have some each." The Chai family's doctor poured out half a bottle of water with medicine and handed it to one of the Chai family's disciples who had been bitten by the man-eating ants. Everyone looked at the light purple water and could not help but be startled. One of them whispered, "Is this really the antidote? Will it work?" Feng Gio glanced at that person. "If it doesn't work, you don't have to drink it." However, the others drank the medicine under the Chai family's doctor's instructions. They were not confident. After all, the antidote looked too easy to refine, right? Although they could not see how Xiao Jio had done it, it seemed like he had only taken some herbs and added them into the water. Was that enough to make the antidote? "Drink it." Feng Gio handed a small bottle to Fan Yixio. "Thank you." Fan Yixio took it and drank it. They rested on the spot. After about half an hour, their symptoms gradually subsided. The fire poison in their bodies dissipated, leaving only some red and swollen wounds. "It's gone. It's really gone. The burning sensation is gone." One of the Chai family's disciples said happily. He felt like he had survived a disaster. "It's really gone. My body doesn't feel so uncomfortable anymore." Another person said happily and looked at Feng Gio. "Xiao Jio, thank you. Xiao Jio, thank you. Xiao Jio, thank you for saving us." A series of excited and joyful thanks came from the mouths of the crowd. Feng Nine smiled and said, "It's nothing." She saw that the Chai family's disciples were not bad, so she helped them. If they were evil people, she would not have saved them. "You still need to apply medicine to your wounds. Come, let me take a look. The Chai family's doctor said as he came to the side of one of the disciples and applied medicine to his wounds. Little bastard, come here. Hun Yuan sat by the stream and shouted at Fengjiu. Hearing the words little bastard, Fengjiu shook her head and stood up helplessly. She walked over. I'm not called little bastard. No one has ever dared to call me that. She looked at him with a smile, but there was an unknown meaning in her eyes. No one dared to call you that, but that old man called you that. Hun Yuan snorted and looked at the youth sitting in front of him. He asked with dissatisfaction, Last time, you helped Junhua detoxify his poison, and you cheated this old man of a treasure. This time, you saved so many people. Why don't you get some reward from them? How is that the same? Fengjiu smiled and looked at him with narrowed eyes. There are some things that don't need to be calculative. I've always done things according to my heart. Just like when I helped Junhua detoxify, I did it on a whim. Moreover, I did mention it before I did it. I'll be rewarded. Didn't you say you didn't know the old man? What? Now you remember? The old man sat cross-legged and crossed his arms in front of his chest, snorting. You've been reminding me along the way. How can I not remember? She smiled and looked at him. But so what if I remember? You can't take back what's in my hands. Moreover, I didn't cheat you to get it. It's my reward. Chapter 2031. Fengjiu was taken aback. What is it? Hun Yuan glared at her. Still playing dumb? It's about taking the old man as your master. As soon as he said this, the little bastard curled his lips and looked away. No, she couldn't be bothered to become his disciple. Although Chu Batian, the palace master of the Tianyuan Palace, was far weaker than Hun Yuan, she was indebted to him. He had helped her unlock her profound spirit body, and he had also given her the ancient divine sword Qingfeng. Although he had only left her a few treasures, he had not given her any guidance on cultivation. However, she had grown stronger step by step with the things he had left behind, in addition to her own talent and comprehension. Aside from what she learned in her past life, she learned almost everything on her own in this life. What was the use of having another master? She would only be looking for trouble. When she became Chu Baishan's disciple, she promised to do 3 things for him. Now, Tianyuan Palace's influence had spread from the lower continents to the upper continents with her, and the ancient divine sword, Qingfeng, was in her hands. There was only one thing left to do, and that was to find his descendants. Unfortunately, after so many years, it was extremely difficult to find his descendants. Her master, Chu Batian, was the overlord of the lower continents. However, when she sent people to secretly investigate, there was no news from the lower continents. Now that she was in the upper continents and her influence had shifted here, it was even more difficult to find his descendants in the lower continents. Sometimes, she even wondered if his descendants were already gone, or if they had hidden away and become ordinary people. After all, his descendants were still alive. If news of her possessing the Qingfeng sword spread in the lower continents, his descendants should have come knocking on her door. However, this matter was like a stone thrown into the sea. There was no response at all. Little bastard? Little bastard? Hun Yuan couldn't help but glare when he saw the youth in a daze in front of him. Is the old man's words so boring? How can you be distracted when talking to an old man? Fengjiu came back to her senses and glanced at him. I'm not distracted. I just happen to be thinking of something. She took out a wine gourd from her space and unscrewed the lid to take a sip. When the lid was unscrewed, the fragrance of the wine filled the air. Huan Yuan's eyes lit up when he smelled it. He swallowed and stared at the wine gourd in Fengjiu's hand. Why is a child drinking wine? Give it to me. Let this old man have a taste. He reached out to snatch it away, but Fengjiu dodged. She held the wine gourd and stared at him vigilantly. Don't you have one? Why are you snatching mine? This old man was so greedy. The old man was a little surprised by the speed at which he dodged. He couldn't help but stroke his beard. He narrowed his eyes and stared at him while saying, Old man, I think your wine is more fragrant. I am an old man, so you have to respect me. Do you understand? Fengjiu started laughing when she heard this. She stared at the old man, who had a rosy complexion and a smooth face that didn't have a single wrinkle. She said, "Besides your white hair, beard, and eyebrows, you don't look like an old man at all." Chapter 2032. Fengjiu's mouth twitched when he saw the old man's smug expression. She didn't dare to listen to him. He turned his body slightly and moved to the other side, taking another sip of wine. Seeing that the little bastard was drinking with his back facing him and ignoring him, the old man glared at him. "Little bastard, are you listening to what this old man is saying? Little bastard." The old man jumped in front of him. "I'm talking to you. I'm not a little bastard," Fengjiu said as she held the wine in her arms and refused to give it to him. "You're a little bastard. You took my treasure the first time we met. If you're not a little bastard, then what are you?" He was angry when he thought about that. This kid was too cunning. Fengjiu quickly put away the wine gourd and stood up. He walked over to Second Master Chai. "Second Master, when are we leaving?" Second Master Chai respected Feng Nine even more because he had saved them twice in a row. He did not look down on Feng Nine just because he was a teenager. Hearing Feng Ix's question, Second Master Chai said, "I'll discuss it with the immortal monarch." Then he walked towards Hunyuanzi. Not long after, Hunyuan and Second Master Chai finished their discussion. The group moved forward again. "Has the immortal master been here before?" Second Master Chai asked. "Of course." As Master Hunyuan spoke, he glanced at Fengjiu from the corner of his eyes and inwardly cursed. This little bastard, he had repeatedly brought up the matter of taking Fengjiu as his master, and yet he had still managed to fool him. He didn't believe that with his prestige, he wouldn't be able to take this boy as his disciple. Hearing this, Second Master Chai asked again, "How long until we reach the crater?" "According to our speed, we should be able to reach that area in about 10 days. However, this is assuming that the journey is peaceful. If something were to happen along the way, it would be hard to say." Hunyuanzi walked leisurely with his hands behind his back. He was thinking about how he could make that brat obediently acknowledge him as his master during this period of time. That little bastard definitely didn't know how strong he was. As long as he knew how strong he was, he would definitely rush over and beg him to be his disciple. When he inexplicably thought of that scene, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. His eyebrows were full of joy. Oh, just thinking about it made him excited. What should he do? No. He had to find a chance to show off his skills. He had to show that little bastard how strong he was. Zhuo Junyue, who was walking beside Hunyuanzi, saw that the old man's expression kept changing along the way. He didn't know what happy things the old man was thinking, but the corners of the old man's mouth were almost reaching behind his ears. Zhuo Junyue was even more puzzled when he saw the old man's spirited expression. The old man was angry just a moment ago. Why did he suddenly become so happy? He glanced at the old man, then at the young man in green behind him. He thought that the old man's good mood must have something to do with that young man. They walked all the way until the sky gradually darkened. Only then did they stop in the forest. "Let's rest here tonight. You guys go pick up some branches and come back to light 2 bonfires. Let everyone rest. Remember, send a few people to take turns keeping watch." Second Master Chai instructed. He then turned to Hunyuan and said, "Immortal Master, please take a seat and rest." Okay. Hunyuan didn't sit down. Instead, he walked up to Fengjiu and paced back and forth in front of him. Chapter 2033. The old man walked with his hands behind his back and stopped in front of Fengjiu. He put on the look of an expert and said, "Little bastard, do you know that this old man is very powerful?" "Yes, I know." Fengjiu simply nodded. Seeing him agree so easily, the old man's words were stuck in his throat. He glared and asked, "Do you really know? Do you know what kind of existence this old man is in the Nebula Immortal sect?" "Yes, I know. It's the sect's Mount Tai," she said with a smile, which was a stark contrast to the old man's glare. "When the sect master sees this old man, he has to respectfully call me senior brother." He stroked his beard and said, looking like an expert, "Yes, I know." She nodded with a smile. "If you know, then why don't you accept me as your master?" He glared and said. Seeing him so persistent, Fengjiu sighed. I already have a master. Your master? Who is it? Is it some old monster from the four great immortal sects? He thought that such a good seedling's master should have some background. You don't know my master. Fengjiu shook his head. Her master, Chu Baishan's corpse had been in the secret underwater palace for decades. But in the lower continents, the older generation knew that he was a famous figure. But in the upper reaches, it would be strange if they knew him. This old man doesn't know him? Hearing this, Han Yuan was startled. He said with a strange look, "This old man doesn't know anyone who is a nobody. Could it be that your master doesn't have a big background? Just a small figure?" Fengjiu smiled. No matter what kind of person he is still a person. The world is so big, and there are so many hidden experts. Senior dares to say that you know all of them? Hearing this, the old man choked and was speechless. There were many hidden experts. Of course, he didn't know any of them. However, how could this sly and mischievous kid be the disciple of some hidden expert? The two of them chatted here and there. The people on the other side had already lit a fire and called the two of them over. The old man walked back to the fire with his hands behind his back and sat down, while Fengjiu leaped onto a tree and leaned against a branch to rest. "Xiao Jiu, aren't you going to come down and warm yourself up by the fire and eat something?" Chai Feng asked as he approached the tree. "No need. I have food here," Fengjiu said from the tree and took a sip of wine. Seeing this, Chai Feng took out his rations and threw them to the tree. "Here, catch this. This is for you." Fengjiu caught it and said thanks. Chai Feng smiled and walked back to the bonfire to chat with the others. Fengjiu closed her eyes and rested. She felt a slight movement on the branch and opened her eyes. She saw that Zhuo Junyue was leaning against a branch not far away, holding his sword with both hands and squinting his eyes. Seeing this, she looked away and went back to sleep. She thought that she could have a good night's rest. Unexpectedly, she heard some movement in the middle of the night. She opened her eyes and quickly sat up. At the same time, Zhuo Junyue, who was on the same tree, opened his eyes and sat up. He glanced at Feng Nine and then looked around. Han Yuan, who was resting by the bonfire, had also noticed the movement. He instinctively looked at Fengjiu on the tree and was surprised to see that he had also woken up. This kid's vigilance isn't bad, he thought to himself as he kicked Fan Ishio and the others beside him. Chapter 2034. "What are you doing, Marshal Granduncle? Get up. We're surrounded," the old man said angrily. Everyone in the Chai family was startled by his words. Surrounded? The Chai family members were on high alert. Why didn't the night watchman alert us? Second Master Chai used his divine sense to investigate, and his face turned serious. "He's been killed." There was a faint smell of blood in the air, and a low and oppressive murderous aura permeated the air, making the night even colder. Everyone's hearts sank when they heard this. He was killed. He was killed without making a sound? What a powerful skill. What a brilliant assassination technique. To think that he didn't even make a single sound when he killed someone. Seeing that there was no movement around, Han Yuanzi signaled Second Master Chai to speak. Seeing this, Second Master Chai shouted in a deep voice, "Who is it? Come out." I didn't expect there to be one or two capable people in this inconspicuous team. A sneer was heard. That person's voice was cold, and his voice was filled with a powerful pressure. Almost as soon as the voice spread, the blood and chi of some of the weaker members of the Chai family started to churn. A faint feeling of discomfort appeared. Han Yuanzi frowned when he saw that some of them could no longer stand and bent down. He released a wave of pressure from his body and blocked the pressure that was coming towards them. His old voice was full of energy as he shouted, "Who are you? Come out." "Oh, it's Han Yuanzi from the Nebula Immortal Sect." The voice was heard again. This time, a person walked out from the shadows. With the help of the night light and the two bonfires, they could clearly see that it was an old man in his 60s. He was clearly an old man, but he was wearing a dark red robe, which did not match his aged appearance at all. It was very strange. That person had the appearance of an old man, but his voice was that of a middle-aged man. He did not sound old at all. Right after that old man walked out, some people dressed in black appeared around him as well. Demonic cultivator. It's a demonic cultivator. The appearance of these people no longer concealed their aura. A dense and evil demonic aura spread out, causing everyone to involuntarily take a few steps back. Their sword-wielding hands trembled slightly. It was no wonder that they could kill the night watchman without making a sound. These people were all demonic cultivators. The aura that overflowed from their bodies made people's hearts tremble. Demonic cultivators were cruel and bloodthirsty. Demonic cultivators were the natural enemies of the Orthodox sects and all Orthodox cultivators. Similarly, all Orthodox cultivators were enemies of the demonic cultivators. As long as they encountered the demonic cultivators, regardless of whether there was a grudge between them or not, they would go on a killing spree. They were even more bloodthirsty and ruthless than the Scorpion mercenary group. They hadn't expected that they would still be targeted by a fiendish cultivator, even though they had been extremely careful along the way. Just when had they been targeted, they didn't even notice. Hun Yuan stared at the old man and frowned. "You're one of the demon lord's 10 subordinates, blood demon." His tone was firm. It was clear that he recognized the old man. "Hee, Hun Yuan, immortal lord, you good eyes?" Chapter 2035. Fengjiu, who was on the tree, narrowed her eyes. She quietly looked at the demonic cultivators walking out from the shadows below. She did not expect to encounter demonic cultivators here. What a surprise! The blood demon, one of the 10 demons under the demon venerable, was it this old man in red? She recalled the information collected by the Phoenix Guards. It had indeed mentioned that there were 10 powerful demonic cultivators under the demon venerable, and one of them was the blood demon. It had also mentioned that the blood demon was very easy to recognize because he liked to wear dark red robes. Moreover, he had once suffered from chi deviation during cultivation and had to suck human blood as nourishment. Otherwise, his appearance would become that of an old man. It seemed that he was the person below. The news she had received was that Hanrong would come to the fire forest. She did not expect the blood demon to come as well. According to the information, the blood demon had the strength of a peak immortal sage. Why was he here? Was Hanrong here as well? Her heart skipped a beat. Her gaze swept past the people below. When her gaze landed on a black-robed man beside the blood demon, her eyes flashed. Hanrong. He was wearing the same black robes as the other demonic cultivators. However, unlike the other demonic cultivators, he was wearing a half-mask. However, that half-mask was not difficult to recognize for someone like her who had wanted to kill him for a long time. Killing intent rose in her heart. Even though her aura did not leak out, her momentary change still attracted the attention of Zhui Junyue, who was on the same tree. He glanced sideways, and his gaze landed on the green-robed young man. Doubt flashed across his eyes. Was it his imagination? He actually saw a flash of killing intent on the young man. I didn't expect that there would be a Hun Yuan immortal lord in this small group. What a surprise. The blood demon chuckled. However, his voice was sinister and somewhat ear-piercing. I've long wanted to experience the immortal lord's Hun Yuan 8 trigrams palm. Today, I've met you. Hun Yuan, immortal lord, how about we exchange a few blows? The sinister voice was filled with excitement and eagerness. Although it was a question, it was clear that he was determined to fight Hun Yuan Z. Master Hun Yuan calmly glanced at the surrounding black-clothed demonic cultivators before his wise eyes landed on the blood demon. He said, "There are plenty of people who want to fight with this old man. Unfortunately, this old man doesn't easily show his primeval 8 trigrams palm. If you want to fight with me, sure, but there's a condition." Hearing this, the blood demon chuckled and asked with interest, "Immortal monarch, please tell me. I'll fight you with the primeval chaos 8 trigrams palm. If I win, you can't touch anyone here. You must take your people and leave this old man's sight." Hun Yuan said in a deep voice. When everyone heard Primordial Chaos's words, their hearts warmed. He wanted to protect them and keep them alive. After all, If they were to engage in a chaotic battle with these demonic cultivators, only a handful of them would be able to survive. However, the other party was a demonic cultivator. If they lost, would they really leave with their people? Everyone thought to themselves. They felt uneasy, nervous, and worried. Chapter 2036. Everyone was a little surprised when they heard this, but after giving it some thought, they realized that they were just insignificant figures. It was understandable that the Blood Devil looked down on them. Hun Yuanzi also felt that the others were insignificant to the Blood Demon. Since he had made such an offer, the Blood Demon was a respectable person and would not go back on his word. Therefore, he waved his hand and signaled for everyone to retreat. The Blood Devil's eyes flickered with excitement. He also raised his hand to signal the surrounding devil cultivators to retreat, leaving the whole place empty. Two figures, one righteous and one evil, surged their chi, causing too powerful chi and pressure to spread out in the surroundings. Even in the night, the red chi emitted from the Blood Devil's body was very obvious. It was as red as blood and was filled with devil chi, causing people to tremble in fear. He wasn't holding a weapon in his hand, but his hands were rotating in front of him. A red devil force formed into a rolling energy ball that whistled through the air. On the opposite side, Hun Yuanzi took a step forward, bent his waist slightly, and waved his hands. The chi in the air formed into a white 8 trigrams. When the devil cultivator waved his hands to attack the rolling energy ball, the 8 trigrams chi in his hand struck out. Almost in an instant, when the two streams of air rushed out, they collided with each other with a rumbling sound. The powerful air wave instantly knocked down the surrounding trees, and the surrounding grass was pushed outwards by this wave of air. The space expanded again, and two figures, one red and one gray, quickly swept out without saying a word. Asterisk whoosh. Bang. Asterisk 2 visible chi streams, one red and one white, flew out along with their attacks. The sharp sound of the chi streams was like a sharp blade, causing the surrounding people to be dumbfounded. This was a battle between experts. The speed of their attacks was so fast that they couldn't even see their moves. The speed of their movements and the surging of the chi streams made them feel inconceivable. Among the people present, the second master Chai family had already broken through the flying immortal realm and entered the immortal realm, becoming an early-stage immortal sage expert. Blood Devil, on the other hand, was at the peak of the immortal sage realm. He was only one step away from entering the immortal venerable realm. His strength was so strong that no one dared to underestimate him, especially when Primal Origin was an immortal venerable. The fact that he dared to challenge Primal Origin showed that he was very confident in his own strength. Even though the two of them were clearly at different levels of strength, the Blood Demon showed no signs of being defeated. This made him worried. If the Hun Yuan Immortal Lord was defeated by the Blood Demon, all of them would probably die. Fengjiu sat on the tree and watched the battle. The old man was an intermediate immortal venerable. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be defeated by the Blood Devil. However, the Blood Devil had surprised him. Although the Blood Devil's cultivation base was one grade lower than the old man's, he was still able to fight with the old man. This showed that the Blood Devil's combat strength was incredible. If this continued, it would be hard to say who would win and who would lose. Seeing Fengjiu staring at them with a pensive expression, Zhuo Junyue thought that he was worried and whispered, "Don't worry. That Blood Demon is no match for the old man. He hasn't used his 8 trigrams fist yet." Chapter 2037. The 8 trigrams fist is his famous fist technique. This fist technique is unpredictable and unpredictable. When he punches, it's as if he's trying to stop a horse. When he punches, it's as if he's wading in water. He moves like a dragon and flips like an eagle. He wins through ingenuity. Most of the time, he doesn't show it to others easily. When he uses the 8 trigrams fist, very few people can match him. Zhuo Junyue said slowly as he watched the two fight below. Fengjiu's eyes flickered. Why did it sound so similar to the I Tai Chi fist? Just as she was thinking, she heard a low shout from below. Blood demon, take my fist. Hun Yuanzi let out a low growl and changed his fist technique. His movement technique also followed suit, and his footsteps also changed. She was slightly surprised. The 8 trigrams fist was indeed similar to Tai Chi. When Blood Demon saw the change in his fist, he was delighted. Ha ha ha! You're finally using the 8 trigrams fist? Then let me have a taste of your 8 trigrams fist. His speed increased again. He clenched his fist and punched out. A powerful airflow followed his fist. When the two fists collided, a red and a white airflow collided. The airflow on their bodies did not give way to each other. As their fists collided, their feet did not idle and attacked each other. His fists changed again, and the wind from his fists changed. His footwork was as smooth as flowing water as he punched out with both fists. The two fists struck Bloodseeker's chest and abdomen with a force that was too late to cover one's ears. The hidden force contained in the fists forced Bloodseeker to retreat more than 10 meters, and he let out a muffled groan. Blood Demon's feet rubbed against the ground to slow his retreat. 2 long marks were left on the ground. Blood Chi rushed up to his throat. He felt a salty taste in his mouth and knew it was blood Chi overflowing. In order to not let Hun Yuanzi look down on him, he swallowed the blood. The 8 trigrams fist is indeed extraordinary. Again, he stared at Hun Yuanzi with a sinister look. The corner of his mouth twitched, revealing a sinister smile. Today, I'll use my Vajra 8 steps to defeat your 8 trigrams fist. Dream on, Hun Yuanzi snorted. Not only is your fist technique inferior to mine, but your strength is also inferior to mine. You want to fight me? You'd better go back and train for another 10 or 20 years. With a single word of disagreement, the two of them began to fight again. Because they had used all of their strength, a powerful pressure pervaded the surroundings, causing the entire air to be shrouded in a low and oppressive aura. About 10 moves later, the Blood Demon was hit by Master Hun Yuan's fist again. This time, one could clearly hear the sound of his ribs breaking and blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Hun Yuanzi snorted and put his hands on his hips, a smug look on his face. How about it? Didn't the old man say that you're not my match? Why aren't you taking your men and scramming back? Blood Demon raised his hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked at the smug Hun Yuan and revealed a strange smile. Is that so? I'm no match for you? Then let's try again. Again? This old man doesn't have the time to play with you again and again. Hun Yuan frowned. He stared at Bloodseeker and threatened. If you don't take her away now, I'll most likely take your life this time. You better think it through. Chapter 2038. Seeing this, Hun Yuanzi thought that since the Blood Demon insisted on fighting, he would take his life. As long as he died, the other demonic cultivators would not dare to attack when they saw that he was protecting this place. After making up his mind, he clenched his fists and rushed forward. However, this time, he was somewhat surprised. The target that he was supposed to hit flashed in front of him at the speed of light. He only had time to see the dark red figure flash past him. Then, he heard the Blood Demon's sinister laughter behind him. Eat my fist. Hun Yuanzi quickly turned around and retreated. However, even if he turned around and retreated as fast as he could, he was still not as fast as the Blood Demon's fist. Watch out! Cries of alarm were heard at that moment. They came from Fengjiu, Zhuijun and Second Master Chai. However, even though they had warned him, they were still a step too late. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of the fists landing on Master Hun Yuan's body rang out with loud bangs. After the first punch landed, the next one followed closely behind. The Blood Demon chased after Master Hun Yuan while he was retreating, and his fists landed heavily on Master Hun Yuan's chest. Several punches were delivered in an instant, and they were so fast that no one would be able to react to them. However, Master Hun Yuan was hit by those punches, and blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. His face was pale, and he staggered a little as he retreated. Finally, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed slightly as he fell backward. He wanted to stabilize himself, but found that he could not muster the strength to do so. Old man. Zhuo Junyue's face was cold as he came to his side. He supported the swaying Han Yuanzi and frowned at the blood demon. You cheated. Others might not have seen it, but he saw it. Not only did the blood demon use a feint to trick the old man, he also had sharp objects between his fingers when he punched. When the punches landed heavily on the old man's body, blood gradually seeped out of his chest. The blood was slowly turning black. Nothing is too deceitful in war. Moreover, we are demonic cultivators. You can't be so naive as to think that we will keep our promises like you so-called righteous people, right? The blood demon chuckled. His laughter was filled with mockery, as if he was mocking their stupidity. Despicable. Second Master Chai also cursed angrily. He had never expected these demonic cultivators to be so despicable and shameless. This blood devil was an immortal sage expert, but he actually used such a despicable method to win against primordial chaos. Blood demon raised his head and laughed. Ha ha ha. So what if he was despicable? Now that Han Yuanzi has been struck by my fatal 7-step nail, he can't even protect himself. Do you think your end will be any better than his? Hearing this, Han Yuanzi's face turned livid with anger. Damn it. It was simply despicable and shameless. You guys. Ugh, puff. When he moved his chi and blood flowed faster, and the poison in his body flared up even faster. When his chi and blood surged up, he spat out another mouthful of blood. However, the blood was already showing signs of turning black. You're angry just because she said a few words? So easily provoked? At some point, Feng Jiao had already arrived by his side. He carelessly placed a hand on Han Yuanzi's back. Then, the silver needle between his fingers pierced into Han Yuanzi's body, sealing his meridians. Seeing that it was him, Han Yuanzi took a deep breath to suppress his anger. Chapter 2039. Feng Jiao glanced at him and raised his eyebrows. What are you trying to do? Don't tell me you're going to fight the blood demon. The old man had fallen for his trap. He would have been suicidal if he had stepped forward. Take care of him. Zhuo Junyue looked at the blood demon in front of him as he spoke. At the same time, Second Master Chai walked up and stood beside Zhuo Junyue. The blood demon laughed when he saw the two approaching. He looked at them mockingly and disdainfully. What are the two of you trying to do? The two of you are not worthy of my attention, nor are you worthy of my attention. However, since you want to die one by one, I have all the time in the world to play with you. He took a step back as he spoke and gestured for the two people beside him to step forward. Go and teach these two a lesson. Show them our strength. Yes, the two of them answered. They flew forward and unsheathed their long swords. Han Rong was still standing beside the blood demon. However, she was now looking at the young man in green. However, the people from the other families had surrounded them and blocked the figures of Han Yuanzi and the young man in green. They could not see what they were doing. Feng Jiao was helping Han Yuanzi check his wounds. When he lifted his shirt, he saw the wounds caused by the sharp nails on his gloves. Feng Jiao's eyes narrowed slightly. He treated the wounds while he spoke mercilessly. Old man, didn't you say you were very powerful? How could you be injured like this by someone weaker than you? Look at you now. Do you look anything like the immortal sex Mount Tai? As the poison in his body flared up, the old man's aura gradually weakened. When he heard Feng Jiao's words, he replied unwillingly, I was careless. Who would have thought that the blood demon would be so shameless? He couldn't beat me, so he resorted to underhanded means. If I were him, I would have done the same. Only you would follow the rules when dealing with a demonic cultivator. Feng Jiao sneered. He took out a pill and stuffed it into the old man's mouth. Where did this come from? Let me have a look. When he took out the pill, he smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. Just as he was about to check what grade the pill was, he was forced into his mouth. He only felt the pill slide down his throat, and a cool aura flowed through his body. Immortal Monarch is so heavily injured, and we're surrounded by demonic cultivators. I'm afraid We won't be able to escape. A disciple beside him said, his face filled with unconcealable worry. Chai Feng stood beside Fengjiu and asked hopefully, Xiaojiu, do you have any other ideas? What can I do? These devil cultivators are not easy to deal with. She curled her lips and pricked his 10 fingers to force out the poison, saying, Old man, you owe me a life. How long will it take to recover? Han Yuan asked, worried about the battle ahead. Fengjiu glanced at him. Do you think you can fight again after the poison is cured? Forget it. It's good enough that you didn't die. You took a few punches from the blood demon, and each of them hit your chest. Even if you take the pill, you won't be able to recover in a short time. I'm worried that they won't be a match for those demonic cultivators, especially with the blood demon. Even if all of you work together, you won't be a match for the blood demon. As Han Yuan spoke, he clutched his chest and tried to stand up. Chapter 2040. But how could Han Yuan calm himself down to regulate his breathing? If he couldn't fight, wouldn't they be at the mercy of others? There's still a pill here. Keep it and eat it. Fengjiu gave him a pill bottle, then stood up and walked forward. The 2 demonic cultivators in front of them were no match for Zhuo Junyue and Second Master Chai. After a brief battle, both demonic cultivators were injured. One of them even had his arm cut off by Zhuo Junyue. The thick smell of blood permeated the air. The blood demon narrowed his eyes and stared coldly at Zhuo Junyue. I didn't expect you to have some skills. The 2 demonic cultivators covered their wounds and retreated. They stared at the 2 of them viciously. Zhuo Junyue turned his sword and pointed it at the ground. He didn't say anything and just stared at the blood demon cautiously. Fengjiu walked forward and glanced at the demonic cultivators. Her gaze naturally swept past Han Rong. She smiled inwardly when she saw him staring at her. No matter how hard he tried, he wouldn't be able to guess who she was. This time, she wouldn't let him escape. Han Rong looked at the young man in green. The more he looked at him, the more he felt that there was something wrong with him. However, he couldn't put his finger on it. Thus, he moved closer to the blood demon and whispered a few words to him. After hearing Han Rong's whisper, the blood demon looked at Fengjiu playfully. Oh, what's so special about this kid? Why can't I tell? Han Rong looked at the young man in green and said in a low voice, This young man doesn't seem to be afraid. His expression is calmer than the others. I feel that something is wrong. However, his cultivation is only at the gold core stage. I can't tell what is wrong. Is that so? Since there's something wrong, why don't you test him? The blood demon glanced at him and said. Han Rong froze when he heard this. However, he could only reply, yes. He walked forward and looked at the young man in green. He drew his sword and pointed it forward. You come out. Fengjiu raised an eyebrow when she saw the sword pointed at her. You're calling me? She took a step forward, but was stopped by Zhuo Junyue. Go back. Zhuo Junyue frowned as he looked at Fengjiu. He raised his hand and stepped in front of Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. He's pointing his sword at me. How can I dodge? One had to know that she had been looking for an opportunity to kill Han Rong. Now that the opportunity had presented itself to her, how could she let it go so easily? Zhuo Junyue frowned as he watched Feng Nine walk out from behind him. She walked forward step by step. You want to fight me? I accept. She smiled and squinted her eyes. Looking at this scene, Han Yuan was somewhat worried and couldn't help but yell, Little B****, come back here. Everyone from the Chai family, as well as Fan Yishio and the others, were shocked. What was Xiaojiu trying to do? He was only in the Golden Core realm. Did anyone die? Compared to the worry of Master Han Yuan and the others, Han Rong looked at the azure-robed young man, slowly walking over. Not only was he not afraid, he even gave him a mysterious smile. Seeing that smile, Han Rong felt a bit strange. Who was this young man? Why did he give off such a dangerous feeling? Chapter 2041. Seeing the youth's sudden smile, the devilish charm on his lips, and the glint in his eyes when he narrowed them, Han Rong's heart skipped a beat. He pointed his sword at the youth and shouted, Who the hell are you? You'll know soon enough. Fengjiu said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure had already dashed out. His movements were so fast that it was inconceivable. She did not use any weapons, but the moment she attacked, it was a sure kill move, aiming straight for the opponent's fatal spot. Whoosh! A gust of wind followed her figure as she dashed out. Her extremely fast movements and sure kill moves attracted everyone's attention. Even Han Rong could not react to Feng Jiu's sudden attack. He hurriedly dodged, but no matter how fast he dodged, he still felt a piercing pain on his neck. After quickly retreating, he suddenly looked at the youth. At the same time, he touched the wound on his neck, and his eyes widened in shock. You are—" Before he could finish speaking, he saw the youth in green raise his eyebrows in surprise. His lips curled into a devilish smile. However, that smile did not reach his eyes. At the same time, the green figure attacked him again. Every step was filled with killing intent. Every move was filled with killing intent. It was aimed right at his face. His heart was filled with shock and horror. Feng Jiu. This youth must be the ghost, Dr. Feng Jiu. It's that woman. He hated her to the core. He had all the information on her, her movements, her attacks, and everything about her in his hands. That devilish smile, that terrifying glint in her eyes, and that strange movement. There was no one else other than Feng Jiu. However, he did not even have the chance to call out her identity. She closed in on him step by step, and her killing intent overwhelmed him. Damn it! He knew it. He knew it was him. Whoosh! A sharp chi flowed out from Feng Jiu's hand and slashed across Han Rong's arm. That was the chi of the saber aura, which was extremely sharp. With one slash, a deep wound appeared on Han Rong's arm. Blood gushed out and quickly soaked his clothes. Even though he was wearing a mask, it was obvious that his face was pale, his lips were trembling, and his eyes were filled with fear and shock. His panicked expression was seen by everyone, but no one could guess the reason for it. Although the green-robed youth's movement technique was amazing, he had only displayed the strength of a gold core stage cultivator. Although the blood demon found it strange, he felt that if Han Rong did not even have the ability to deal with a gold core stage cultivator, then she was too useless. Moreover, he didn't have a good impression of Han Rong. Even if Han Rong died here, he wouldn't feel the slightest bit of regret. At this moment, seeing that the young man in green was able to injure him and even forced him to a dead end, he was somewhat interested. Han Rong sucked in a breath of cold air and screamed. His knees bent, and he fell forward pathetically to the ground. The back of his right leg had been stabbed and fresh blood flowed out. It was so painful that his entire leg was twitching. When the surrounding demonic cultivators saw this scene, their eyes flashed. However, the blood demon did not ask them to help. They just stood there and watched. After all, it was Han Rong and not them who had been forced into a dead end. Chapter 2042. The number of wounds on his body increased one after another. He had narrowly escaped death time and time again, and this made him tremble with fear, but he also felt ashamed and angry. That damnable Feng Jiu. She seemed to be able to kill him with every move, but she was able to injure him 70% without directly taking his life. She was playing him like a monkey. Did she want to watch him bleed to death? Did she want to torture him before he died? Damn it. He wouldn't let her have her way. He thought fiercely. Since the blood demon and the others didn't want to save him, he would drag Feng Jiu down with him even if he had to die. Thinking of this, he clenched his teeth and mobilized the spiritual power in his body. He was going to use all his strength to fight Feng Jiu. However, Feng Jiu seemed to have seen through his intentions. Before he could attack, she had already rushed toward him. The dagger in her hand flashed coldly and slashed toward his throat. Swish! The dangerous slash left a shallow wound on his neck. The fear of death and the other party's teasing made him furious. He glared at her. I'll be ruthless with you. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sneered. So he didn't want to be ruthless with her? He was clearly anxious. Seeing the wounds all over his body open up, except for the wound on his neck, every cut was so deep that the bone could be seen. She felt that it was about time. This Han Rong was also pushed to the edge by her. The killing intent in her heart stirred. Her figure flashed, and the blade of the dagger pierced towards his lifeline. The blood demon, who had been watching, saw the murderous intent contained in the green-robed young man's blade. He could not help but look at Han Rong, who had stepped forward and revealed a sinister smile. His sinister voice rang out at this moment. Not just anyone can kill the people under my command. As the blood demon spoke, he flicked his hand, and a stream of air attacked from his hand. He wanted to knock away the dagger in Feng Jiu's hand. However, at that moment, Feng Jiu threw the dagger in her hand into the air. She rushed forward and dodged the blood demon's attack. After catching the dagger, she turned around and stabbed it toward Han Rong's chest. Swish! And the sharp aura of the blade spread out. With a muffled groan, Han Rong stepped back. He glared at Feng Jiu with unwillingness and hatred. He clutched his chest with one hand to stop the blood from gushing out. He was unwilling to fall. Just as the blood demon was surprised that Han Rong was able to dodge his attack, he saw Han Rong try to escape with his nascent soul after falling to the ground. A strange light flashed through the blood demon's eyes. He thought about how Han Rong's body was so heavily injured. If he didn't escape with his nascent soul, he might really die here today. Just as he was thinking about it, his nascent soul flew out from the body. However, just as the nascent soul escaped, the youth jumped up and tried to grab the nascent soul. Seeing this, he once again tried to stop the youth from killing the nascent soul. However, just as he sent out a gust of wind, the youth dodged to the side and waved his hand, letting out a roar. Eat him! Feng Jiu's cold voice came out. She waved her sleeve, and a ray of light flew out. It instantly turned into a fierce beast and swallowed the nascent soul. Roar! Chapter 2043. This sudden scene had already stunned everyone. Whether it was the demonic cultivators or the people on Han Yuan's side, all of them had their mouths wide open as they stared at the youth in green, only feeling that it was inconceivable. The majestic and mighty cloud-swallowing beast was already at the level of a sacred beast. At this moment, it stood obediently beside the youth, smacking its lips as if it was recalling the taste of the nascent soul that it had just swallowed. As for the youth in green, his temperament and aura seemed to have changed in an instant. The originally simple and honest youth was now filled with a devilish and wanton aura. The night wind gently blew, blowing his hair, allowing them to see the corners of the youth's lips curl up slightly, as well as the languid and arrogant voice that came from his mouth. If I want to kill someone, no one will be able to escape. Feng Jiu's chin was slightly raised. Her eyebrows were full of wanton and arrogance. At this moment, she no longer restrained her aura. That noble temperament, that powerful aura that had been in a high position for a long time, naturally flowed out. There were only corpses left on the ground, and the nascent soul that had tried to escape had already been swallowed by the sacred beast. The surroundings were silent. Only the sound of breathing and the rustling of the leaves on the ground being blown by the wind could be heard. This kid has hidden his strength. Han Yuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, muttered with his eyes wide open. There was actually a time when he had misjudged. This kid's skills and strength, most likely, were far more than what they saw now. No wonder he was unwilling to acknowledge him as his master. So it was because he himself had such strength in a contracted beast. A sacred beast? TSK, not simple. Seeing this, Zhuojun's eyes flashed with surprise. No wonder he had always felt that this youth gave him a very strange feeling. So it was because of this, to be able to have such a sacred beast. How could his cultivation be only at the golden core stage? That meant he had suppressed his strength? The people of the Chai family were also dumbfounded. That simple and honest-looking Xiao Jiao actually had such a ferocious and powerful contracted beast? That was a sacred beast, right? Fan Yishio was also shocked as he looked at the green-clothed youth. This youth had been very low-key along the way, but had saved them twice. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that the person just now was the one who had smiled and called him Big Brother Fan. How could such a person be a member of the Chai family? At this moment, he couldn't help but wonder. As for the people from the Chai clan, after recovering from their shock, they thought that the Nebula Immortal sect was truly a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even Xiao Jiao, this seemingly honest and thin youth, actually had such ability and had such a powerful contract beast, as expected of one of the four great immortal sects. The blood demon looked at the sacred beast, and the interest in his eyes grew stronger. He stared at the young man and saw that the young man's cultivation level was still at the golden core stage. However, because he did not restrain his chi, he could faintly see that he was different from before. This made him curious. Who exactly was this young man? Who are you? Chapter 2044. Why do you care who I am? Feng Jiu glanced around and snorted. Are you going to take your men away? Or do you want to fight me? It's up to you. But let me tell you, I'm not as easy to deal with as the old man. Hun Yuanzi, who was sitting cross-legged at the back, heard this and his mouth twitched. What did he mean by not as easy to deal with as the old man? Did he mean that the old man was inferior to him? This little rascal was indeed a little rascal. He didn't know how to respect the old at all. Hearing Feng Jiu's words, the blood demon laughed and looked at him with interest. Do you think you're qualified to fight me? Feng Jiu smiled. You could try whether I'm qualified or not. Do you want to fight one-on-one or in a group battle? It's up to you. In a one-on-one fight, she might not be a match for the blood demon. If it was a group battle, she could let the contracted beasts in her space come out and exercise. Although the Fire Phoenix didn't come this time, both Tun Yun and Lao Bai were not weak. Seeing the arrogance and confidence between the young man's brows, the blood demon laughed sinisterly. Since you've killed my men, I should come and meet you. I want to see how capable you are. As soon as he finished speaking, a dark red figure flashed past like a ghost. His hand turned into a claw and grabbed at Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu still held the dagger in his hand. With a twist of his hand, the dagger glinted with a sharp light and stabbed at the claw. Seeing this, the blood demon immediately changed his claw into a palm. The wind from his palm hit Feng Jiu's hand that was holding the dagger. She turned around and dodged. While her footwork changed, she didn't stop attacking. The two of them exchanged blows. Everyone who saw this scene was shocked. Not to mention that the blood demon's battle experience was not something that Feng Jiu could compare to. His strength and cultivation were not something that ordinary people could deal with. Once the pressure of an expert was released, it would be difficult for weaker people to even straighten their backs in front of him. However, this young man could fight the blood demon without the slightest fear of his celestial sage aura. What did this mean? It meant that this young man's strength was not inferior to his. Freak! What a freakish monster! His bone age was so young, yet he had the same strength as an old monster? What kind of cultivation speed was this? It was too heaven-defying. No wonder that devil cultivator from before couldn't resist at all. No wonder that devil cultivator didn't hesitate to use his nascent soul to escape in order to find a way out. How could the blood demon, who was fighting with Feng Jiu, he did not know what kind of thoughts had appeared in his mind, but he suddenly took a few steps back and stared at the young boy in front of him. He saw that the young boy had a delicate and handsome face, and there was a hint of confidence and coldness between his brows. His eyes were very beautiful, and the light in his eyes was sharp and intimidating. Looking at the young boy again, although his body was thin, it seemed that he had not yet grown up. If his body grew up in another 2 years, he could be a well-built young boy. Chapter 2045. Feng Jiu frowned when he saw the blood demon suddenly retreat and look at her with that gaze. His expression turned cold. She was all too familiar with that gaze. The person who looked at her with that gaze didn't see her as a person, but as an object. Brat, the more I look at you, the more I like you. How about you come my side? I can promise you a bright future. The blood demon said with a smile. He thought that if he smiled, he would look amiable. However, he didn't know that it would have been better if he didn't smile. His smile made him look even stranger. Fengjiu sneered. But I don't like you. You're already so old, yet you're still wearing red. You're such an eyesore. The blood demon's eyes narrowed, and a sinister look flashed through his eyes. Heh, since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being impolite. Today, whether you're willing or not, you're mine. With that, the dark red figure attacked Fengjiu. Fengjiu's eyes turned cold, and spiritual power surged from his body as he rushed forward. Seeing the two fighting, Han Yuan was so angry that he cursed. Old bastard, you perverted old bastard. What do you mean by whether you're willing or not? I never thought that this old thing was such a perverted thing. The others were also bewildered when they heard the blood demon's words. Did the blood demon take a liking to Fengjiu? Could it be that an old guy like the blood demon was also a homosexual? For a moment, everyone looked at the two people in front of them with strange expressions, and they forgot to fear their current situation. Only Zhuo Junyue pondered after hearing the blood demon's words. He didn't think that the blood demon would have such thoughts. He should be thinking, seeing the youth's outstanding skills and cultivation. A thought flashed through his mind. He wanted to possess him. He wanted to keep Fengjiu by his side so that he could possess him when his lifespan was nearing its end. Thinking of this, his gaze darkened, and he pursed his lips as he looked at the scene in front of him. He wondered if Fengjiu had a chance to win. If he lost to the blood demon, no one here would be able to escape. Fengjiu would also fall into his hands and become his pet. Just as he was thinking, he heard a loud bang. He looked up and saw that the green-robed youth, Fengjiu, had been pushed back by the blood demon. He staggered back a dozen steps. Seeing this scene, his heart sank. Just as he was about to go forward, he was stopped by the old man. Junyue, come here. Han Yuanzi called out in a deep voice. He frowned as he looked at the scene in front of him. There was a thoughtful look in his wise eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Junyue looked back at him, and then at Feng Nine in front of him. He then walked up to him and asked in a deep voice, "What's the matter?" This old man, the blood demon, used the Vajra seven-step fist against the youth. How could the youth withstand it? The Vajra seven-step fist was the blood demon's famous martial technique. Han Yuan glanced at him and said, "You're not even as strong as that little bastard. Don't go up and cause trouble for him. Just watch from the side." "You think he can handle it?" Zhuo Junyue asked with a frown. "That is hard to say." Chapter 2046. Zhuo Junyue was very surprised to hear this. This was indirectly admitting that the little bastard's cultivation was very strong. If he could even defeat the blood demon, then there was no need for him to take him as his master. If it wasn't for the scene in front of him, even if the little bastard himself told him that he was so strong that he didn't need to take him as his master, he wouldn't believe it. He can't deal with the blood demon's Vajra, seven steps fist. As Zhuo Junyue spoke, he looked at the youth who was retreating under the blood demon's attacks with a trace of worry in his eyes. Seeing that Fengjiu's attacks were suppressed by the blood demon's Vajra seven steps fist, Master Han Yuan was also worried, so he began to complain. "This brat, I told him to take me as his master, but he didn't listen. Tell me, with his talent, if he took me as his master and learned my 8 trigrams fist, why would he be afraid of the blood demon? I'll go help him." Zhuo Junyue spoke and was about to go forward, but he was pulled back by the old man. "Wait, look, that little bastard's posture seems to have changed." The old man pulled Zhuo Junyue with one hand and looked at the youth who was forced back by the blood demon's Vajra, seven steps fist. Zhuo Junyue's eyes flashed as he looked forward. Indeed, after the young man was pushed back again, his aura and posture had changed. After he was pushed back, he squatted down and placed his palms together. With one hand lowered and the other raised, he stared at the blood demon. His aura had been completely restrained by his posture, making it difficult for the young man to understand what was going on. However, when the youth took a step forward, his originally lightning-fast steps became as light as a cat's steps. At the same time, his hands moved and his spirit force surged. The blood demon clenched his fist and let out a roar. A Vajra 7 steps, fist containing 500 kilograms of force, was thrown at him. However, the youth moved slowly and nimbly to the side. He nimbly grabbed the blood demon's hand and used the force to push back the 500 kilograms of force. Bang! With a bang, Bloodseeker was pushed back more than 20 meters. He crashed into a large tree behind him and let out a muffled groan. The tree he was leaning against broke with a crack, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. With a gloomy gaze, he looked at the young man who was leisurely moving his hands. He watched as the young man gathered the surrounding spiritual aura between his hands, forming a circle that was visible to the naked eye. "What fist technique is this?" Blood Demon asked in a gloomy voice. He raised his hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. His 1,000 pounds of strength was actually deflected back by him with little effort. How could there be such a powerful technique in this world? Hun Yuanzi's eyes widened when he saw this. He stared at Feng Jiu in shock and jumped up from the ground. He grabbed Zhua Juanyue's shoulder tightly, and his face flushed with excitement. This is Tai Chi." Feng Jiu glanced back at Hun Yuanzi and smiled wickedly. "It is Tai Chi. Tai Chi." Blood Demon frowned. Tai Chi and 8 trigrams are one family. Why did he feel that it was similar to 8 trigrams? Tai Chi. It's Tai Chi. Chapter 2047. I don't care if you're Tai Chi or 8 trigrams. I don't believe that I can't take you down today. He shouted in a gloomy voice and took a step forward. His fist carried a fierce hidden force as he swung it at Feng Jiu. Tai Chi, using softness to overcome strength, using stillness to overcome strength, using weakness to overcome strength. Feng Jiu's gentle voice came out of her mouth. As she spoke, her movements and body technique changed. Although her movements seemed slow, she easily avoided the blood demon's Vajra 7 steps. Her body technique was as beautiful as moving clouds and flowing water. It was natural and smooth, and her body coordination was excellent. It was this set of fist techniques that didn't seem to have much strength that suppressed the blood demon's Vajra 7 steps again and again. The surrounding people were stunned. Hun Yuanzi, in particular, was the most agitated. He unconsciously tightened his grip on Zhua Juanyue's shoulder, causing Zhua Juanyue to feel some pain. He frowned and turned to look at the red-faced old man. "Take your hand away. Tai Chi. Look, it's Tai Chi. This little bastard. How can this little bastard know Tai Chi? Which old monster taught him?" He acted as if he didn't hear anything and spoke excitedly. He couldn't help but feel satisfied when he saw the blood demon miserably dodging the Tai Chi. Well done. Beat him. Beat him hard. Beat that shameless old thing to death. He cheered from the side. He was full of energy, and his ruddy face shocked the demonic cultivators. Wasn't Hun Yuanzi poisoned? With the blood demon's poison, people in the future would die within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Even if this old man had a cultivation base to protect his body, it was impossible for him to be fine and still have a ruddy face, right? What was going on? Was the poison ineffective on him? Or was he cured of the poison? If Hun Yuanzi wasn't poisoned, it would be difficult for them to take the lives of those people. Just as everyone was pondering, they saw a surge of spiritual energy in front of the green-robed young man form a Tai Chi and fiercely attack the blood demon. With a bang, the blood demon was sent flying dozens of meters away. Pooh! When his body flew out, blood demon coughed out a mouthful of blood. He helped himself up, but he didn't go forward. Instead, he put on the sharp gloves on his fingers and charged forward. Feng Jiu let out a loud roar and charged at Feng Jiu as if he was flying. He seemed to have activated his true chi and was ready to fight with his life on the line. However, when his fist was about to hit Feng Jiu, he suddenly pulled out a long sword from his sleeve and attacked Feng Jiu. A sharp sword aura was released, and the sword aura was threatening. Despicable. Everyone from Chai family was shocked and cursed angrily. Their hearts were also in their mouths. In terms of weapons, Xiao Jiu was probably not his opponent. Moreover, Xiao Jiu did not have a weapon in his hand, only the dagger that he had previously hidden in his boot. This shameless old thing. He can't beat me, so he wants to play dirty. Han Yuanzi also cursed angrily. Zhui Junyue frowned and wanted to go forward, but he saw that the old man's hand was still on his shoulder. He looked back at him and said, "Do you want to watch him die?" Chapter 2048. The old man gestured for Fengjiu to look ahead. Just as the blood demon's long sword was about to reach him, Fengjiu dodged to the side, and a green light flashed. At that moment, they did not see what it was. They only heard the clang of the sword and the blade. Clang, whoosh, the sword light refracted, and the sword chi surged. At the same time, a groan was heard, and a trace of the smell of blood spread. The two figures exchanged several blows in an instant, and the clang of the sword and the blade was heard. The air was filled with powerful spiritual auras and coercion. The two of them were so fast that no one could clearly see the swords in their hands or their sword moves until a powerful airflow was knocked away and the two figures retreated. The long sword was pointed to the ground, and the green figures stood against the wind. At this moment, everyone could see the sword in the youth's hand. The Qing Feng sword. Han Yuanzi and Second Master Chai exclaimed at the same time. They recognized the Qing Feng sword. It was said that this sword was an ancient divine sword. However, this ancient divine sword had disappeared for many years. How could it suddenly appear again, and in the hands of such a youth? Zhui Junwell looked at the young man holding the green sword, and a dark light flashed in his eyes. His expression changed for a moment, but it was so fast that people thought it was an illusion. He pursed his lips and looked quietly at the sword in the young man's hand that was glowing with a green light. The blade was sharp and cold, and the body of the sword was suffused with a green light. Before anyone could get close, they could feel the sharp sword chi. This was the ancient divine sword, the Qing Feng sword. Unlike the others, the blood demon was shocked when he saw the Qing Feng sword in the youth's hand. However, he was not shocked by the Qing Feng sword in the youth's hand. He was shocked by the youth's identity. "You're Fengjiu. You're Fengjiu, the ghost doctor. You're a girl." 3 consecutive affirmations came out of his mouth, and every single one of them carried monstrous rage, shock, and astonishment. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have dared believe that this handsome young man before him was the renowned ghost Dr. Fengjiu in the lower continent. Damn it! He had wanted to capture him and trap him by his side so that he could take over his young body in the future, but now he knew that the young man he had his eyes on was actually a woman. When he was still the ghost Dr. Fengjiu that even the demon lord was wary of, one could imagine how he felt. Ever since they were involved in the matter of destroying his Phoenix dynasty, they had turned the tables around and destroyed 2 dynasties with lightning speed, shocking the other powers in the lower reaches of the continent. In a short period of time, they had even united the powers in the lower reaches of the continent, making it impossible for them to attack. This ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, had even been repeatedly warned by the demon lord not to provoke her. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that they would actually meet her again in this fire forest? At this moment, she thought of the method she used to kill Han Rong. She thought of how she only attacked Han Rong. Even when Han Rong escaped with her nascent soul, she still did not let her off. She finally understood. So she was Fengjiu. She was the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. What? What ghost Dr. Fengjiu? What girl? Chapter 2049. However, the old man's voice was clearly weak when he spoke, as if he lacked confidence. He stared at Fengjiu with a strange expression, sizing him up again and again. No one knew what he was thinking, but his expression was very strange. The others also looked in front of them in astonishment. Why did the blood demons say that Fengjiu was a woman? Wasn't he a man? That couldn't be right. Junyue's gaze shifted slightly as he looked Fengjiu up and down, deep in thought. Fan Ishio was also stunned. A woman? That couldn't be, right? No matter how you look at him, he's still a young man. Even if he's a little handsome, he has nothing to do with being a woman. There's no trace of a woman's shyness or bashfulness on Fengjiu's body. How could he be a woman? Furthermore, they've been quite familiar with each other all this time. If he were a woman, how could they not recognize him? The blood demon ignored them. He cautiously took a step back and stared at the smiling young man in front of him. His embarrassment turned into anger as he shouted, "The great ghost Dr. Fengjiu has disguised herself as a man. It's one thing, but you've even changed your appearance and disguised yourself like this. What? Are you ashamed of yourself?" Unfortunately, he couldn't tell that this young man was a woman and still wanted to possess him. He really didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he, a dignified blood demon, was trapped in a woman's body. However, when he thought of this, he took a deep breath. His opponent was the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, someone who even the demon's sovereign feared. How could he be so easily captured? He had thought too simply of the situation. Fengjiu twirled the emerald-edged sword in her hand and raised her eyes to look at the blood demon. Her lips curled into a smile that wasn't quite a smile. "I didn't think that the great blood demon would know of me. I'm truly honored." Fengjiu, I know your target was Han Rong. Now that Han Rong is dead, the enmity between us is over. I won't fuss about it with you today." As he spoke, the blood devil retreated step by step, and at the same time, he waved his hand to signal the other devil cultivators to retreat. Fengjiu didn't give chase as she watched the blood demon retreat. She just stood there and watched. At the same time, a cold voice mixed with spiritual energy came from her mouth. "Tell your demon sovereign that one day I will flatten your demon palace." Hearing this, the blood demon felt a lump in his throat. He turned around and stared at the green figure with a gloomy face. He replied in a gloomy voice, "Our demon hall will be waiting for you at any time." As soon as he finished speaking, the group of devil cultivators disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. All that was left was the faint smell of blood in the air, as well as the astonishment and disbelief of the surrounding crowd. They all left just like that. Those demonic cultivators who couldn't even beat primordial chaos ran away after recognizing Fengjiu's identity. Everyone was dumbfounded. Some of them stared blankly at the green figure in front of them, only feeling that it was inconceivable. What was the background of this ghost, Dr. Fengjiu? Could it be that just by flashing the ancient divine sword and mentioning the name of ghost Dr. Fengjiu, he could scare off the devil cultivators? Moreover, even the blood demon, one of the 10 great devil cultivators under the demon sovereign, was scared off. Were they seeing things? At this moment, everyone was shocked and felt that it was inconceivable. This was something that they had never encountered before. It was too strange, too unbelievable. Also, if the ghost Dr. Fengjiu that the blood demon was talking about was the young man in front of them, then wasn't he her? A woman. Chapter 2050. Fengjiu turned around when she sensed the gazes of the people behind her. When she met their curious and admiring gazes, she said helplessly, "Actually, one of the main reasons I entered the volcano forest was to kill that person." She pointed her Qing Feng sword at Han Rong's corpse on the ground. Her words told them that she was neither from the Nebula Immortal sect nor from the Chai family. Fan Ishio and the rest, as well as Second Master Chai's group, all stared at her with their mouths agape. They had thought that she was one of the other party's people, but after all this time, she had snuck in from nowhere. Xiao Jiuyu, you are really a woman?" Chai Feng stared at her with a strange expression. He could not imagine what this young man would look like in female clothing. "Yes, I am a girl." She smiled. This smile did not have the evil charm she had when she accepted the challenge. Instead, it had the friendliness of a girl next door. But how can you be a girl? You." He looked her up and down and pointed at Fengjiu's flat chest. He wanted to ask, but he could not bring himself to ask. "Kid, what are you asking? If she says she is a girl, then she must be a girl. Why do you have so many questions?" Second Master Chai patted Chai Feng's head to stop him from asking. Feng Jiu smiled and didn't say anything else. She wiped the Qing Feng sword and prepared to put it away. However, a figure walked in front of her at this moment. This is the ancient divine sword. Qing Feng sword? May I have a look? Zhuo Junyue stood in front of Feng Jiu and looked at the sword in her hand. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised when she heard this, but she still handed the Qing Feng sword to him. Don't touch it with your hands. The Qing Feng sword's aura will hurt you, she reminded him. Han Yuan, who was behind them, was stunned. What's wrong with Junhua? Why is he interested in the Qing Feng sword? Although the Emerald Edge sword was an ancient godly sword, and even he was curious about it, it would be inappropriate for him to play around with other people's swords. Thank you. Zhuo Junyue took the sword and took a look. The words Qing Feng sword were engraved on the blade, and the sword aura was extremely sharp. Looking at the sword in his hand, his gaze flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he returned the Qing Feng sword to Feng Jiu. He looked at her and asked, "How did you get this sword?" Zhuo Junyue was not a person who would overstep the bounds of propriety. Yet, such a person had done two unreasonable things in a row. After hearing his words, Feng Jiu gave him a deep look. This azure edge sword originally belonged to my master. He hid it in the myriad sword mount. When I first became his disciple, the second thing he told me to do was to enter the myriad sword mound to find the azure edge sword. He sent me into the myriad sword mound, and I personally found it and brought it out. Zhuo Junyue, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng. Zhuo looked, Qing Feng, Qing Feng, Qing Feng. Zhuo Junyue looked at her with deep eyes. He seemed to have many things to say, but in the end, he shook his head and did not speak. Feng Jiu stared at him and said, "My master's surname is Chu." She saw that Zhuo Junyue had lowered his gaze and concealed the look in his eyes. Her heart skipped a beat, and she handed him a token. "If you have the chance in the future, you can come find me at the Heavenly Pill building in Hunter River City." Chapter 2051. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to run away again? Hun Yuanzi came to her side and glared at her. You're so heartless. Are you going to leave us behind? Also, why don't I have the token you gave him? Give me one too. He extended his hand to Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu glanced at him and said with a smile, "The medicinal pills I gave you weren't cheap. Besides, I saved your life." "Oomph. I don't need you to save me. That old thing can't kill me." He snorted and asked, "Where are you going? Aren't you going to come with us? Xiao Jiu, are you really leaving?" Second Master Chai also stepped forward and asked. It was thanks to her that they were able to survive this journey. If it wasn't for her, it would have been very difficult for them to survive. Now that they heard that she was leaving, they couldn't help but feel anxious. Feng Jiu saw that they were all nervous, so she smiled and said, "I still have some things to do. Originally, I sneaked into your team to not be so conspicuous and to not be discovered by Han Rong. Now that he is dead, I have to leave." "Then, will we meet again?" Second Master Chai asked. He wanted to know what she gave Zhuo Junyue. If they needed her help in the future, where would they find her? Feng Jiu smiled at Second Master Chai's question. "You can find me at the Heavenly Elixir building in Hunter River City." As she spoke, she leaped into the air and sat on the back of the super divine beast, Cloud Swallowing, who was standing at the side. "We'll meet again." She cupped her fists and bowed to everyone. Her gaze swept past Hun Yuanzi and landed on Zhuo Junyue. She was going to ask someone to investigate Zhuo Junyue's background. "Hey, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I want to go with you." "Where are you going?" "I want to go with you too." Hun Yuanzi reacted and quickly followed. Feng Jiu's mouth twitched when she heard this. She sat on Swallow Cloud's back and looked at the old man who was tugging at her clothes like an old urchin. She asked, "You still want me to acknowledge you as my master?" "No." Hun Yuanzi shook his head and said. Suddenly, he smiled and looked at her. "However, this old man wants to be your disciple. You can teach me Taiji Fist." I was so excited when I saw those moves, and they were similar to my Bagua Quan. "So, I want to learn your Tai Chi Fist. Please accept me." Hearing Huan Yuan's words, Not only were the people of the Chai family stunned, even Fan Ishio and the other disciples of the immortal sect were stunned. Their nebula immortal sects, Tai, Shan, actually wanted to take Fengjiu as his master. Wasn't this too reckless? Although Fengjiu's medical skills and strength were outstanding, Han Yuanzi's age was obvious. It was inconceivable that such an old man would want to take a young man, no, a woman, as his master. No matter how one looked at it, they couldn't understand what Han Yuanzi was thinking. Upon hearing Han Yuanzi's request, Fengjiu's eyelids twitched. He glanced at him and said, "You're too old. I won't accept you." Hearing that he was being ignored, Han Yuanzi anxiously stomped his feet. "How am I old? Didn't you say that my face was rosy and my skin was smooth without any wrinkles? Why are you complaining that I'm old now?" Chapter 2052. Tun Yun leaped into the forest with Fengjiu. Han Yuanzi panicked when he saw this. Wait for me, old man," he shouted and was about to chase after them when someone pulled him back. "Senior Granduncle." Fan Ishio pulled him back and asked, "Senior Granduncle, what should we do if you leave?" They had not reached the depths of the forest yet. If they left, it would be difficult for them to reach the depths of the forest. Let go! Let go! The old man swung his hand and looked back at them angrily. "What do you mean? Do you still need to ask me such a simple question? That little bastard has left, and this old man has to chase after him. I definitely won't be able to protect you. Hurry up and go back along the original path. Hurry up and get out of this volcano forest. Otherwise, if you continue to walk forward, who knows what you'll encounter." Second Master Chai nodded. "You're right, Immortal Monarch. That's what I plan to do too." If all of them left, then they naturally couldn't go any further. They had already encountered enough on this trip, and it was too dangerous to go in without the protection of a strong warrior. This Fire Mountain forest wasn't a place they could come to, so it was better to leave, lest the younger generation of the clan die here. Fan Ishio was startled when he heard this. He looked at Han Yuanzi and Second Master Chai. After a long while, he turned to his junior brothers and sisters. "What do you all plan to do?" They looked at each other and said, "Eldest senior brother, we also think that it's better to leave. Moreover, we want to go home after we get out of here." Fan Ishio nodded. "That's good. Let's leave it at that." He looked at Han Yuanzi and said, "Senior Granduncle, in the future." Before he could finish, he saw Han Yuanzi rushing forward. At the same time, his anxious voice was carried by the wind. All right. Don't talk too much to the old man. Hurry up and go back. The old man wants to find that little bastard. If we don't go after her, she'll be far away. Junhua, hurry up." After hearing his words, Junhua nodded to the others and rushed forward to catch up with the old man. "You're still injured. Don't you have a mount? Why don't you use it?" With this reminder, Han Yuanzi was startled. "That's right. I have a mount too. I've really been angered to the point of stupidity by that little bastard. I almost forgot that this old man also has a mount." As he spoke excitedly, he summoned his mount and leaped onto it. At the same time, he ordered his mount to run forward. Seeing this, Junhua raised his chi and followed closely behind Han Yuanzi, searching for Fengjiu. After watching them leave, Second Master Chai sighed and turned around to look at the crowd. "The sky is getting brighter. Let's hurry up and leave. We should be more vigilant on the way back." "Yes," everyone responded. After they were done, they quickly left. However, as they walked, there were still many people who looked back. They felt that this trip to the volcano forest was really unforgettable. Everything that happened along the way would still be remembered clearly after a long time. On the other side, Fengjiu was in a good mood after finally killing Hanrong. Now that Hanrong was dead, all she had to do was go to the depths of the volcano forest to find some fire spark stones and bring them back. Then she could leave this place. Chapter 2053. The corners of her mouth twitched uncontrollably. About 100 meters behind her, the gray-robed old man was riding on a strange-looking, mutated beast. Beside him was the expressionless Zhuo Junwei. When she saw the two of them following her silently, she couldn't help but sigh. Behind them, when he saw that Feng Jiu had noticed them, the old man grinned. He didn't have the slightest awareness that he was tailing someone. He even excitedly waved his hand at Feng Jiu. "Hey, little rascal." Halfway through his words, little rascal didn't continue. Instead, he shouted, "Little master." Oomph. In terms of shamelessness, if this old man claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Although he was at a disadvantage, if he could learn Tai Chi, he would be very excited. So, who cared if she agreed or not? If he called her little master first and pestered her, he didn't believe that she wouldn't teach him. "Why aren't you following them? Why are you following me?" she asked helplessly. This old man was too careless. Wasn't he worried that those people would all die here? After all, they had been together for a long time. How could he not care about their lives? "I asked them to go back first. Why would I still need you to protect them?" As the old man spoke, he gestured for his mount to come forward. He came to Feng Jiu's side and said, "Besides, I want to learn Tai Chi from you. I've already called you little master. You can't go back on your words." "I didn't force you to call me that." Feng Jiu glanced at him. "Besides, I didn't preach. You can't do this." The old man felt wronged, but he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing this, Feng Jiu looked at him, thought for a moment, and said, "I have to go back after I'm done. It's not convenient for me to stay here for long. You know that I have the Aurora teleportation scroll. I can leave much faster than you." "Speak human." The old man glared at her. Didn't she have to say what she wanted to say? "It's useless for you to follow me. I might disappear at any time. Since you want to learn, I can show you the way." Feng Jiu looked at him and said, "What path?" "Let me tell you, I will only learn from you. Don't push this old man to some random person." He snorted with a proud look on his face. "Not everyone can make this old man call him little master. You don't need to call me master. Go to the 100 Rivers City's Heavenly Dan building and find someone called Lung Hua. His Tai Chi was taught by me. You can go and learn from him." Feng Jiu said with a smile. "No way. Who knows how much of what you taught him he learned? If he can't learn anything, he can teach me. I don't dare to teach him." He turned his eyes and stared at Feng Jiu, asking, "What are you going to do in the depths of the forest?" Hearing this, Feng Jiu looked into the depths of the volcanic forest and said, "Since I've come to the volcanic forest, I naturally want to bring some fire spark stones back and see if they are really useful treasures. In that case, wouldn't it be better for us to follow you? If anything happens along the way, we can take care of each other. Besides, this old man is injured now. If someone wants to kill this old man, won't this old man be dead for sure? Also, this old man has been here before. I'm familiar with this place," he said proudly with an expression that said he knew where to find the fire spark stones. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.